What's going on, everybody? Cali Death Podcast back again, episode 18. We got a very, very awesome episode ready for you guys. We got some Bay Area fucking legends, gore legends. We got the guys from Exhumed. We got Matt Harvey, Sewage, and our close friend who's coming back for his second appearance. He was on the first episode of this podcast, Mr. Mike Hamilton.
What up,
Brought
fella?
you guys on to show some fucking love for the Bay Area metal scene. You guys fucking went way back, way further back than I have, and we want to hear all that shit. Ross is
I got stories to tell you, man. I seen some shit.
Being represented by his toy friend.
Whoa, dude, that was like a magic trick, bro. You fucking jumped in super quick after that.
It's all in the editing.
Right.
Fuck yeah. All right, real quick. Christopher Beatty, thank you again for that fucking awesome intro. We fucking love it every single time. People be asking about that, so put out an album, motherfucker. But yeah, here we are. So what else? What am I not plugging that I should be plugging right now? Anybody remind me?
Is this coming out tomorrow?
It's coming out tomorrow. Yeah.
This weekend, should we? Matthew, would you like to plug the footage?
So tomorrow is actually a semi-momentous occasion for us. We will be re-soliciting our internet concert, Glorified at the Grind Guignol. It's an hour of live performance, sans audience, as one does in 2020. However, the exciting thing that is causing us to go out and replug it once again is that there's now 30 extra minutes of bonus footage from a benefit concert that we also did. And we also, when we launched the concert the first time, we had posters, which we still have some available. We had long sleeves, which we still have a handful of available. And now we are relaunching it with t-shirts. It's all exclusively through our web store, exhumed.bigcartel.com. You can get the shirt bundle, you can get the poster bundle, or you can just get the show for $10. It's like over an hour and a half of gore metal littered with, little interview segments with us and all sorts of pulse pounding putridity in the Exhumed idiom. So, yeah.
Cool. Advertisements are over. So people just fast forwarded.
At a punk rock price.
I'm going to pull that up for everybody to check out. So
Do it.
here's the Big Cartel store.
Oh,
And this is what you just described, right? The Glorified at the Grind.
that is it. $10. You can stream for the next month, or you can download to own it forever and relive the magic over and over. Magic, of course, being in air quotes.
In glorious 1080p or slightly less glorious 720p.
Right. And there's all kinds of other good stuff from Exhumed, from my other bands. So please give me all your money.
Get that pounder too.
Right. The new Pounder album's on there. The book I wrote a story on is in there.
Dude, what's up with that VHS right there? What is that?
It is a book. It is a horror anthology that I have a short story in.
Matt knows magic too. He can make a book look like a VHS tape.
Right.
Oh, nice.
That was actually Rachel designed that cover. So
Dick, dude.
That's nice.
Caught my eye.
Our good friend Rachel, who also did some design work on the horror LP.
Absolutely. She's awesome.
Hell yeah, guys. Well, this is fucking cool. This is cool as fucking shit, dude. Like, to be a Bay Area kid, born and raised, and getting introduced to metal fairly early in the adolescence. By 17, I bought my first Exhumed record, and I'd seen Exhumed several times at the Pound, seen Impaled several times at the Pound. We have guys, which, by the way, I didn't introduce, Casey, Joel, and Joseph, the resident homies. They have two of them have had Impaled and Exhumed shows that they have played. So we got a lot of stories today for sure. But how we always do it on this podcast, since we have you, Matt and Ross, you take us back to the fucking early 90s, dude. Tell us how you got into this shit. Like, what? First of all, I know exactly why you got. Well, no, I don't know exactly, but the gore shit is one that's like the thing that pushes you into death metal, or it's something that you grab onto as soon as you get into grind and metal and stuff. So like, what came first? Like, give us all that stuff.
Matt, you start. I was just playing with toys. Well, I still am playing with toys, but I was playing with toys, and you're already starting a band. You were ahead of the curve.
Around before we finish, but I got into metal like in like it must have been like 87, maybe late 86. When I was like 11, and shortly thereafter, I heard Master of Puppets, and that kind of came into my life at a time when there was a perfect storm of like, I changed schools to a new school where I didn't know anybody. I think I was like 12 by this point. My parents were splitting up, and I was, starting to get pimples and like pubes and shit. So there was a lot of angst going on, and that was kind of like the perfect music. But before that, I was already into horror. Like it started with like Nightmare on Elm Street, and then my favorites, I think, by the time I was in junior high, were like Reanimator, Evil Dead 2, like Lair of the White Worm. That was a big one. Hellraiser. The 80s was, of course, a great time for horror and a great time for metal. And as I kept,
I'm sorry, Matt, to cut you off. Mike, I think we're getting some pickup from your mic, dude. There's like some clicking going on, and it keeps going.
Good.
Sorry, dude.
Don't interrupt me.
It's all good. Hey, Mike,
No,
if you want to,
I'm plugged right into the Chromebook. So
yeah,
You can mute yourself when you're not talking.
exactly.
I know it's a little more work, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah, watch this, Mike.
Technology at
I
work.
didn't hear a thing.
But I think when in like 88, when I was about 13, I heard Scream Bloody Gore. And I think I bought the tape just because it had a song titled Regurgitated Guts. I was like, I don't know what this is, but it's worth my allowance. I got to hear what a song called Regurgitated Guts sounds like. And I sort of realized listening to like that album and like the Rain of Blood and Hell Awaits, Pleasure to Kill, and like the Under the Sun of the Black Mark by Bathory, I just thought, this is like the musical equivalent of the horror movies that I like. And it just seemed like it went together really seamlessly. There was also the self-titled Rigor Mortis album was a big one. That was just sort of what set me on the path. And musically, it was always about trying to find like the heaviest band, the fastest band, like, is Creator faster than Slayer? Is Cryptic Slaughter faster than Creator? Is Napalm Death faster than Cryptic Slaughter? And so on and so forth. And that's how you end up starting a death metal band when you're 15.
Totally, dude. I mean, oh, sorry.
No, you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, going off of the faster and faster and faster, it's like that's really what it was like. That I mean, I'm 36, so I didn't really experience the early 90s in real time. But going back and watching documentaries, reading all this shit, it was like it was all about speed back then.
Well, I think the bands were about that too, weren't they? Like, I mean, consider like Repulsion. They just said they just wanted to go faster than Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the scene was changing though, because in the early 80s, up until about 86, when Master of Puppets came out, kind of everybody was talking about speed, and everybody was like mad at Metallica because, it's not fast enough or whatever. And then once they sort of became successful on like a legitimate like success basis, the scene went two ways. You had thrash metal that was used to be all about speed. It became more about like sort of the like mosh friendly tempos, and then everyone's like, well, we don't sing about Satanism anymore because that's childish. We sing about toxic waste or whatever. And then the death metal scene that was sort of simmering underneath in the tape trading scene, those bands started getting signed, and they were like, cool, you guys don't want to sing about Satanism and like killing people, like that's great, we're going to do that now, and we're going to go even faster. And so there was sort of an opening there because South of Heaven had come out, and like Fabulous Disaster, and all of those records really were much slower than the early records by the thrash bands. And that genre was kind of like going towards the mainstream, and death metal was sort of picking up the fans that were like, I love Hell Awaits, but South of Heaven's kind of boring, it's too slow. And so there was and then the same thing happened with death metal a few years later, but it was a few years behind in this sort of like shifting taste.
When did the funk come into it?
That was coming out right when I was in high school, and it sucked. That's one of the things that like destroyed thrash metal. It was like Faith No More, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Fungo Mungo, like all that shit.
Are you telling me you don't like 31 Flavors?
I fucking hate 31 Flavors.
Sacred Right. Yeah,
I hate
Sacred Right
Primus.
tried doing some
I
shit.
hate Fungo Mungo. I hate Faith No More and everything.
Mordred.
It's
I
don't
actually
just
like
be a metal fool.
I'm not. I love all kinds of, and I love funk, but I don't love funk metal. You know.
I mean, most of the time I would agree with you too. There's only probably a few funk metal crossovers that I'd be into listening to, so I'm on your side.
Fungo Mungo?
I hated Fungo Mungo.
I will admit right now I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
They were a band that was getting pretty big around like 91 in the Bay Area. They were playing a lot, and they were doing sort of that like post Mordred, pre Faith No More. Like, is it thrash metal? Is it funk? Is it? I don't know.
Which one was in Encino Man?
That was Sacred Reich. But that was the American way.
That was Sacred. I thought it was like Infectious. Okay, I got it wrong.
Infectious Grooves was, yeah, that was like the outgrowth. That was the LA version of all that.
Yeah, Encino Man. That was the metal scene I was into.
Woo!
With the four basic food groups, I don't even remember them. All right,
I was getting into hard rock and metal like Metallica a little bit later than Matt, and then I met Cole Jones at my high school. We're already for a couple years. You started in '90.
We started like jamming in '90, but we played a show in October '91.
So I think I met Cole '92. I want to say,
right.
And then I was like, yeah, I like Metallica. I was like kind of growing my mullet out. And like,
Ross had a sick mullet.
It was a sick mullet, and I kept it for a long time because I was just hiding my long hair. One day I showed up at school with long hair, and nobody was like, "When did you grow that?" I never went through the awkward hair phase. I had a plan, except for the mullet. That was the awkward hair phase.
There you go.
But Cole was like, I was like, "Yeah, let's." I'm into this hard rock stuff, and he goes, "Oh, cool! Check out this Carcass tape. Check out this Godflesh tape." And so I got to skip a lot of the formative like thrash and heavy metal that a lot of other people get into. And I just like went straight into like Napalm Death, Peel Sessions and shit like that. I was pretty lucky to have met those guys early on, and then just like hung around playing role-playing games and comic books with them till I kind of just got folded into the band, because it turned out I could kind of had a gurgly voice that worked when they needed someone who had a gurgly voice. So it was convenient.
Dude.
And
I also had a car and I could drive. That was also convenient.
Definitely
Ross had a
convenient.
car, and he was very he was very on top of stuff in a way that we weren't. Like, Ross was good at printing flyers, making sure that we were like sending our mail out and like trading tapes and staying on top of all that sort of stuff. The mechanics of being a band is not just like, oh, I came up with this cool riff. That was like the extent of.
Yeah, that's not what I do.
Every once in a while.
So tell me about like, all right, so you guys linked up, you guys are jamming. When it was like the first demo recording and all that kind of stuff happen?
Well, we recorded a rehearsal in my dad's garage in '91, like in the summer.
How'd you record it? Did you have just like a little boom box? Yep.
Condenser mic. And you know, we took that to at the time there was 3 big clubs in the Bay Area that did metal, and pretty much everything went there. There was the Stone, the Omni, and One Step Beyond in San Francisco, Oakland, and Santa Clara, respectively. And they were all owned by the same people, and it was just like a circuit, and it was all pay to play stuff. And so somebody drove up there or whatever. It wasn't me, so I couldn't tell you exactly how it happened, but we gave them our rehearsal tape. We said we're looking for shows, and they said, cool, here's the deal. You're playing a Thursday night at the Stone with bands no one's ever heard of, and give us $150. And we're like, okay, here's $150. I mean, but it was also like, here's some tickets to sell, and you'll make more than that if you sell these tickets. But we just were like, I don't know, nobody we know. We're like 15-year-old. Well, I just turned 16, but we were a bunch of 16-year-old kids from San Jose. So we didn't really know anybody to like go to a gig in San Francisco on a Thursday night. So we just gave them the $150 and showed up and played. And they liked us. So they kept giving us gigs because we always paid. We always, like, if they told us to show up at 5, we showed up at 5. We didn't cause trouble because we were all like nerds. We didn't, we weren't doing like underage drinking or drugs. We were just like, oh my God, we're playing a show. And we just kept getting more and more shows, and we opened for a lot of national acts pretty early on.
Were you guys already playing the gore metal style?
I mean, if you've ever heard like the demo we did in January '92, Dissecting the Casey the Momentum, I mean, it's pretty much, I mean, it's not the exact same, but it's still like that Napalm Death, Carcass, Entombed, Death kind of stuff that we've always done. I think we got a little bit more of our own style of like when Ross was in the band in like '94. We had a bass player named Matt Widener at the time, and it was sort of like Ross had his shit together as far as like, oh, we need to send this mail and like print these flyers and do these things. And Matt Widener had his shit together and like, so how does this riff actually go? And we're like, I don't know, you just do it. And he's like, what's the count? We're like, wait, you got to count? Like, I thought we just played a cool riff and then like you played the next one and that was it. And so that was kind of when we started, developing our own style as a band rather than just like Terrorizer riff, Death riff, Carcass riff, Napalm Death riff, Napalm Death riff, and then that's a song.
Yeah, the horrific Expulsion of Gore, that might have been the first Exhumed songs that had like recognizable choruses.
Yeah, that was when we kind of started finding our own style, I think. But
that's a common thing with bands that I've come across on this podcast and elsewhere is in the beginning everybody's like, okay, we're gonna play the Suffo riff here, the Gorgasm riff comes after that, but then we're gonna play the fucking Vital Remains riff, and then we're gonna come back to the Gorgasm. It's just like,
I mean, that's how you learn, though. I mean, that's
exactly, yeah. No, and in hindsight, now it's funny, but in the same time, you got to look at it like, okay, that's building the foundation, and then it sparks the creativity, and then you end up finding your own voice or style or.
And I mean, what else would you call the riff? Like Alice and Bruce or something? Like nothing is wholly original. We could probably still go through new songs and pick out like, oh, that's the Pestilence, or actually we could probably go through every single Exhumed song and name one Pestilence riff.
It's definitely everything's already been done. Everybody's just trying to figure out a unique way to do it again.
Well, I mean, the thing is, especially in 2021, I mean, you got to think that, Scum came out in 1987. That's what, 34 years ago?
I was 3.
It's not just that heavy metal has been around since 1969, Black Sabbath. It's that even the most extreme underground stuff is now 30 years old. And like, have we really moved on that much since the late 80s and maybe mid 90s, like with the Norwegian black metal was sort of the last new sound that people discovered? Like,
I would agree.
Ultimately, there's not that much to do, or else it's not metal like that. I mean, that's just the boundaries are very narrow. So you're going to end up repeating stuff. You're going to end up calling back to stuff. You're going to end up evoking stuff, and that's part of the scene too. It's part of the cycle. Where like Beauty Waste and Toxic Holocaust 10 years ago, they're like, oh, cool, it's a Nuclear Assault riff, like right on. And now with Necrod and Gatecreeper or whatever, you're like, oh, it's a Bolt Thrower riff. And I mean, the scene itself has the nostalgia built into it because there's only, where is there to go at this point? Although who knows, somebody maybe make a liar out of me next week and do something I've never heard before that's still super heavy. But
it's possible. It's possible.
I mean, even Lamb probably had like, oh, this is the Stooges riff that we're playing really badly. This is the Dead Boys riff that we're just going to play extra fast. I mean, same thing kind of in all art. I mean, Monet was just aping other masters and the new Justice League. It's like, oh, look, he looks like Jesus. Like that hasn't been done in another fucking movie a million times.
And I think really, it's all about sort of the difference with all the history, I think, is that the audience is more savvy to what's going on now. And that's just sort of the pop culture in general. Everything is sort of meta. Whereas like when I first heard Scum, in the middle, there's just a Hellhammer riff. They just play a Hellhammer riff. Like they don't change it. They don't do anything different. All of a sudden there's just a break and they're like, oh, here's a Hellhammer riff. I'd never heard Hellhammer. I was like, that's a cool riff. I don't know. And so I didn't have the framework to be like, oh, this isn't totally original. To me, it was
brand new. Yeah.
14. I was like, I never heard this before. And, even Metallica, who's everybody's first band, like, I mean, I could go through their albums like riff by riff, and I could tell you exactly which Angel riff this is, and which Diamond Head transition this is, and whatever, which Motorhead riff is there. And it's all about context. It's just now that the audience is much more, they're expected to have that context going into it, whereas before you could sort of blindside somebody because there was no internet and things were newer and yada yada yada.
Totally, dude. I totally agree with that 100%, dude. It's like, for us to be exposed to something new, it seems like it's in the past for me. Like my generation, I mean, yeah, I may come across something new before I fucking croak, but it's like, it's for every generation. Every generation is going to have something fresh and new. I don't know when it's going to come for them, but it'll eventually be there.
Right.
As long as we still fucking stay as bacteria on this planet. It'll eventually, we have to, if it gets stagnant, we're just going to off ourselves. Everybody's just gonna
I think
suicide.
things do keep changing, but you don't know something's fresh when you're making it. That's like,
right.
Yeah, we're waking up on it's like, yeah, we're a blip. So it's like, it may be fresh to that. It's all perspective. It's all, you through your lens. So it's like, it's fresh for you in that moment. And then somebody else is going to come and ruin it for you and tell you, oh, dude, it's been done fucking this time, that time. And it's just like, okay, well, it was fresh for me then.
yeah, I mean, some like Wolves in the Throne Room, they, people, like a lot of people got onto them and they were like, wow, this whole new black metal sound is really cool, but it'd been going pretty strong for about, 10 years before that. And then those black metal guys were kind of just aping old Bathory riffs. And before that, Hellhammer and
Venom and blah, 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 blah. Venom was just aping Motorhead, and on we go until we just end up back at, everything ends up back at like Chuck Berry and Little Richard and all the stuff that they were influenced by, a bunch of people that never got.
Don't even get me started on Skrillex and how much he owes the past of disco and house music, because I'll just go on for days. I mean,
is Skrillex still a thing? I thought that was like over with. I haven't heard anything about Skrillex in a long time, but I'm also 45 and have no kids, so I don't know anything.
I don't know what Skrillex is up to.
As the youngest person here,
I know
I'll tell
Daft
you,
Punk just broke up.
I haven't heard anything from Skrillex in years. I think
Okay.
that's over. Yeah, but
Yes, I know Daft Punk just broke up. That was quite sad.
we'll see if he comes back. But
Can I ask? Okay, go for it, Joseph. Go. Sorry.
I was just gonna ask. So, Mike, you're playing with Vile. You're jamming with Deeds of Flesh. Eventually, are you paying attention to Exhumed? Are you, you're knowing what these dudes are up to at the same time?
And he was right.
No, absolutely. I mean, for me, I was kind of a late starter when it came to like joining, with Vile. Vile wasn't really active till like 94. We played some shows with Exhumed and like Tulare. It was like a metal fest out in the middle of nowhere. But I'm very aware of Exhumed. Me and Jimmy T, when we were in bands before Vile, we're like out of high school, it's like dumb metal bands that we were just trying to get established and stuff. But yeah, well, it was Mindlock, yeah, and that was our high school band. And then we went and saw, I think at the time, I think it was a Napa VFW hall. We went and watched Exhumed. I think that was during the horrific explosion of gore tape.
I think that was with Leon, right?
That was with Leon, yeah. And then Ross was in the band as well, and that's when we saw you guys with the cow's blood, and then you guys, the stage antics were just off the charts back then. So we're like, these guys are badass. It's like, it was just fun to see something totally different. The gore metal, like
on the back of the guitars,
of the guitars. Exactly, all that. Yeah, so it was cool to see that because it was something that we hadn't seen before. We knew about Exhumed, but we'd never seen them live, and it wasn't until that VFW hall show, or I think it was VFW hall.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, but it was awesome to see that. So,
these were the formative years, younger people. These were the awesome glory days, playing to 16 people at a VFW hall in 1995, 6.
Totally.
Representing out the basement of a library and putting on the hardest shows you'd ever seen for 12 people. That's how it all began.
And here you are 20 something years later talking about it again.
It was the same thing back in the days of the Paradise Lounge. That was pretty, that was a good spot to play shows along. So we've seen them there as well. So and I think even Vile and Exhumed played a show together at the Paradise Lounge. But yeah, we're both bands coming up in the scene. They've been around, I think, way before us, but we're always knew of each other and played a few shows together. But we're all just doing our thing in the Bay and respected each other. And
I think the main difference between like Vile and Exhumed was that, and really Exhumed in most bands, was that most bands were much more sort of traditionally musical than we were. Like we sort of would ebb and flow, like we'd get a little bit better for a couple of years and then like we just sort of slack off at playing and then we would just be really sloppy. And most other bands, especially Vile, because I remember hearing the Violation demo and I was like really impressed. I was like, this isn't like so much my style of death metal, but it's done like at a professional level. Whereas we were sort of hit and miss. Like it just depended on what was going on. Sometimes we would go in the studio and it turned out killer. And then we would go in a month later and record 3 other songs and it would just turn out like shit. We didn't have like the professional musical discipline. We did, however, especially because it was the 90s and like black metal was sort of king in the scene when we were doing a lot of the formative work, 94 to 98 or whatever. And so we've really felt the need to compete more on like an attitude and like theatricality level. And that's kind of what we put more energy into. We're like, well, we didn't practice this week, but we brought like these like horse bones to a show and we've got like real blood. That's cool.
I also want to give a fair amount of credit to Chris Reifert on a lot of that influence. Speaking of Bay Area influence, I mean, he was puking up green slime in the early 90s. And then when I think it was my first show at the Exhumed, we played with, I think it was also Abscess's first show. It was to about like 15 people in Petaluma, California. And they brought out a bunch of condoms full of slime and goo and all this other shit and threw it out in the crowd. And I was like, we gotta do that. That's rad. And but we'll use real blood because we're hard. And there's these Norwegian assholes. We got to show them up. Right?
I was going to say real quick on that.
Talked about.
That show was never boring. The Exhumed set was never boring.
Might not have been good, but it wasn't.
No, and I'm not saying that. I'm not opening it with never boring as it's a bad thing. Like there was always a surprise. There was always a little thing that would, even if the people weren't paying attention, would end up pay attention. They would end up bringing their attention to the stage because of what was going down. Right. And I've seen bands that have done it like you guys after, and it's funny, like I followed a band, I won't mention their name, and they had like pig intestines that they were throwing out and shit. And I got up on stage and all I said was like, Exhumed was doing that shit like 15 years ago, guys. Come on. Like I gotta fucking walk around all these pig intestines because nobody cleans up the fucking metal stages in between bands. Come on now. So I'm watching, I'm with my sandals on. I got my sandals on, guys, so it's like even worse. And
why are you going to metal shows with sandals on?
Oh, here we go.
Ross wants
Cali way, bro.
Have this conversation. No, I like to be comfortable on stage, dude. And I'm from a beach town, so this is the Cali Death podcast, dude. If you look at our logo, we got palm trees and stuff. We like to be on the beach.
I like the beach. I like palm trees, but I got on stage. I don't trust any motherfuckers in there. I don't want to step on shit. I don't want anyone touching me.
And it's funny.
I was prepped for this pandemic. I don't want anybody touching me. Ever.
Dude, I'm never going barefoot at a show after the pandemic for sure. But
yeah, because you can get COVID through your foot, so it's a real danger. No, you can get less boogers and slime and all this other shit that I've thrown out. What the hell is wrong with you?
I'm blowing my nose on stage.
Sandals still keep me half inch away from the surface that I'm walking on, dude.
You go crowd surfing in a guar pit, you're gonna lose those sandals, and then you're gonna be barefoot.
Dude, but that's the thing. I'm not gonna go crowd surfing in a guar pit, dude. I'm gonna be in the back, like drinking my beer, like this is where I'm by the sound guy. Like this is the best place
you are 35. That makes sense. That is
yeah, dude. What's up? There you go.
Not even Tivas to keep like locked around your ankles. It's flip flops.
It's a new design that we're working on. You know. You know, just
Oh God,
Work in progress.
you can get some serious toenail infection that way. Ask Matt Harvey.
Dude, I still have my feet, dude. I've gone through 20 years of metal doing it, dude. I will say I never went to an actual show as a
An
a
audience
fan with sandals on. Fuck that, dude. No. I'll wear my sandals on stage, but I will not wear sandals down in the crowd. No.
Yeah, Colin Davis used to wear flip flops on stage, so yeah, that was
See that
Oh
you
no.
know.
that'd be a big old no go in Exhumed. That's get back to the theatricality. We have rules.
That doesn't fit in the costume criteria.
No, although Matt's been trying for years to get me to wear stretch jeans, and I refuse.
If they were splattered with blood and guts, what? What about that?
No stretch jeans for me.
Ross has very skinny legs, so it would look good with the stretching.
That's the problem. I have very skinny legs. I would look like a toothpick,
That's
like two toothpicks holding up.
That's what you're not supposed to like. I got big legs. I got truck driving legs.
Yeah, you shouldn't wear them either.
Yeah, well, probably not, but I still do. Too late. Not changing now.
Yeah, dude. Just be comfortable. So, Mike, we totally did we go off of what you were talking? We veered off of what Mike was saying. Like, so you guys were doing shows together. They're on your radar and all that stuff. So, I mean, I guess you maybe already finished that up. So,
Yeah, no, they had Exhumed had quite a huge following in the Bay Area as far as like, you know, from what we've seen, that they had a good draw and they had a good stable name. They're playing all the big shows like Omni and, you know, playing like Harvey was saying, they're playing, you know, with national acts. And Vile kind of was doing that in the beginning, but I think it was just, you know, there's a mutual respect. They were both just doing our thing, you know, and we played a few shows together, but we're kind of both, you know, at the same time doing different kind of shows, I guess. So
Yeah, we kind of like veered off the metal path like in the mid 90s because the mid 90s was a real rough time for metal in the Bay Area, you know. Machine Head was sort of getting popular, which was not our thing at all. Death metal was just dead in the water, you know. Autopsy broke up. Sadists were like using keyboards. And then every other band that was doing demos and stuff around the same time when Exhumed was starting, like Immortal Fate, Plutocracy, Abhorrence, Colostomy, blah, 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 they all split up like by like 94, 95.
and venues were closing too. Stone closed, Omni closed, like all these venues were closing, so there's nowhere to play.
Yeah. So it was a very rough time. So we sort of gravitated more towards like, we were friends with a lot of the guys in like Spaz and Dystopia, even though their fans didn't really like us. The guys in the bands liked us. And we sort of kind of went in like a more like punk kind of, not musical direction, but just direction of in terms of what we were going to do. Like Ross said, we used to book our own shows like community centers, and we played this the basement of the Cupertino Library a lot. And we weren't, you know, it wasn't that we wouldn't have welcomed getting like the local openers spot on a Cannibal Corpse tour, but we were sort of not really in that world. And it made sense like getting signed to Relapse because they were sort of more on like a punk grind tip than like just like a pure like death metal, you know, folded arm, long sleeve, you know, death metal guy. Like that just wasn't where we were coming from. We were into like we were also really influenced by like 80s metal in general, you know. A lot of the stage theatrics came from like Wasp, Kiss, Alice Cooper, stuff like that. So we were really at a pretty, we were, you know, like for a band like Vile, we were kind of arriving in a similar place, but from a completely opposite direction, you know. So we didn't really fit in with anybody. It was horrible. But that was just our thing, you know.
Well, I mean, that actually is something in hindsight that I look at from an artistic perspective as something that would calcify a project or calcify an artist to continue. It just pushes everything else away, and you know that you got your little thing. So it's like, it doesn't matter where you fit in or where you try and fit in. You got your thing. You're going to continue to do it. And again, fast forward now, we're talking about it now, And it's because you guys calcified yourself at that time to be able to, you know, face
That was some
adversity.
advice John McEntee probably gave me in the 90s. He said, just never evolve. He said it worked out great for
Well,
him.
When I say
And it
calcify,
has. The new
Calcify, I'm
incantation
saying
fucking rules.
build a shell. An
Yeah.
exoskeleton. Maybe calcify isn't the best.
No, I think you're right though. I mean, it's also very human nature when you're doing something that isn't working, like because we weren't getting big or whatever. Instead of being like, huh, should we adapt and change and maybe like try to bring in some new elements? We're like, no, let's double down. You know, like we're gonna double down on this and we're gonna stick with it. And you know, in the long run, it ended up working out okay.
We tried to have a DJ, it just didn't work out. So we let DJ Extreme go. It was no good.
That was
Take your turntables and step, bro.
No, you didn't bring any synth player in, you know, as a fifth member.
No, we figured the world would catch back up to us by devolving with us.
I mean, it's a strategy that's worked for me multiple times. So I think it's good. It's solid.
Well, as a metalhead too, it's one of those things where it's like you usually don't like the later albums when they do like you said, added like a keyboard in, say like stuff like that. So you're like, fuck that, we'll just dig our fucking claws in, double down, and get down. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
well, you just stay true to your sound. You know what I mean? Stay true to yourself, right? Like,
yeah.
Even to this day, like when I'm working on a new song, one of my criteria is like thinking about when I was 15 or 16, like would I like this or would I say it was some fucking poser shit? I mean, it was 1991, so I probably go, "That's fucking gay, bro." But now it's poser shit. And that is like, to me, that's important. You know, I think just keeping that through line of like, what was the original intent of this band, and are we still satisfying it? Cool. And of course, we try to do something different all the time and make every record different and blah 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 blah. But it has to sort of scratch that same itch that was there from the beginning, or it becomes something else. Maybe that's better or worse, but I just want it to be itself. If I want to do something else, I have a bunch of other bands to do that in, you know?
Yeah. Ross, can I ask, when did you get, oh yeah, Ross, when did you get, were you doing art at the same time at this time that you're playing in Exhumed in your first stint, or?
Yeah, I was actually, when I joined Exhumed just basically right when I was getting out of high school, because I started one little band by myself, and the other guys were like, "Oh, he can do death metal vocals. All right, well, we need a death metal vocalist, so he's in." We've already known him for years, but so I was in, but then I was off to college for art, so I was in doing the art. I think the first demo, that was just some clip art, which is had been kind of Exhumed's modus operandi for quite some time. It was like, all right, cool, we got a trading card with brains on it, we got we cut out this thing from anatomical book, that's the demo cover. And I was like, well, hey, I mean, Matt's an artist too. Matt he downplays it a lot, but I actually like his drawings a lot. They have a Kirby charm to them, especially since he just reads Jack Kirby all the time. But I was like, we're artists, we can do, you know, I like doing the whole package, like that's always been the way. And so when we started having 7-inch covers, it's like, hey, I'm going to draw this pencils, Cole, you ink it, because Cole's also a good artist. That's actually, I met Cole was in an art class in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So he was actually an artist in his own right. So I was like, there's 3 of us who are like artists, why are we not just doing our own covers and our own shit like that? And it's not like they're necessarily the greatest, but I always liked like Impetigo, Steve-O would draw all the covers, and they had a style to them and a look, and Steve-O's art wasn't exactly the most sophisticated, but it had this charm to it that you knew exactly what the music was going to sound like.
Was it art first or music second, or vice versa?
For me?
Yes.
I started up, as a kid, I wanted to draw comics forever and just do shit like that. And then it was like, hanging out with the Exhumed guys, and, you know, in high school, a bunch of other people started becoming musicians. And I was like, well, if I want to have friends, I better learn to play something. So I started well, first I started off on vocals, and I was like, well, I can write some gross shit, so that's easy. And then eventually the Matt Widener, who I was in the band with to start with in Exhumed, he was leaving And so I was like, well, I actually kind of hate being the focus and just being the vocalist. I want to hide a little bit behind an instrument and make it, I like that kind of either 3 or 4 piece action a lot. And so music was definitely second. And I found it a very awesome way to express myself. And especially when we added the theatricality to it, I think that's something I've really enjoyed through the years. And maybe too much sometimes, where I've done some embarrassing things on stages that make Matt grimace on occasion.
Not anymore. I don't grimace now. I just laugh. But.
The most embarrassing thing you've ever done, Ross, on stage. Let's hear it right now.
Oh God, that's a long ass. Well,
no, you just one thing. The most embarrassing.
To me, nothing is embarrassing. Let me
the most embarrassing to your
most
circle.
Embarrassing to everyone else.
I'm not embarrassed at all, but I did get naked on stage one time and covered myself in blood, and there was probably like 5 people watching, and then after I got naked there was like 3 people watching.
I think it was more like
did you do the double windmill? Yeah. Windmill the mullet and windmill the
I had long hair by that point. Be nice. Upstairs and downstairs. I'm Italian, so
you know, it was a mullet. You had a mullet down there. Don't lie.
I did. I had long hair. It was all party in the front, and my ass is.
Now I'm totally just imagining what the mullet is. Like, how would you groom that properly? Like,
very
in the back,
carefully.
The back is taint. So you just grow out your taint, dude.
Again, I'm Italian. If I were to moon you right now, it looks like a black hole. It's nothing but pubes on there. Anyways,
business on the shaft, party on the balls.
Yeah. So that was the naked show, and then we got kicked out, and they banned us from playing that club. And I just called them a month later and told them that I had been kicked out, and they booked us again. It was fine.
Was that the Cactus Club?
Yeah, it was the Cactus Club. And then I think Matt I think was most mad when I strapped a rubber snake and a plastic cockroach to my arm because I was sick of spikes, and I was like, we got to do something different.
Yeah, dude. I so backed that, dude. I really
it didn't look that good.
I would have been the one guy being like, dude, I know what he's doing, dude. I know what he's doing right now.
It was probably because I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed with Guar to a large extent. I love what they can do on stage and get away with.
Makes sense, dude.
Rebelling against the status quo of spikes.
Right.
Yeah.
The status quo
I keep
Cole.
Yeah.
Their authority figures.
Yeah.
I just like to play and look mean now. It's a little bit easier. We do the theatricality stuff still, but it's a little more I don't want to say subdued. We just kind of we keep the music in one place and we keep the theatricality in this other place, in this other compartment, and they mesh on stage, but we kind of just the musicians actually play the music and the theatricality can just happen.
Yeah,
I know Mike Hamilton would definitely be playing his music, dude.
Yeah, Mike is the least theatrical.
Yeah, I'm the least theatrical for sure.
You got a razor blade, dude. Come on.
Mike can't even like grimace or smile while playing drums. He's just stone-faced killer.
Yeah, it's tough.
He's the Neil Peart of death metal, dude.
Yeah,
totally.
Is Mike having fun? I don't know. Is he angry? I don't know.
Yeah, our last video, I'm just like I'm just filing papers, and Matt's like, dude, get into it. I'm just like, I'm totally into it right now. Like, yeah, whatever, guy. Yeah, I mean, I would be down to blow fire and do all that kind of blood theatrics and all that. That'd be great. But then, you
blow your face.
Our drummer was all theatrics,
burn my face
skill, and now our current drummer is all skill and no theatrics. So I think we're coming out ahead.
Yeah, I got my job on lock. Everything else is up to the front guys.
Right.
So
there you go.
All good, dude. We know you're gonna do your shit back there, so it's all good, dude.
I do my best.
Like do your best.
It's like the drummer is the driver of the musical bus, and you want him to like kind of be straight,
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, like drummers should have a role. Like Lars Ulrich does a great job. He's very theatrical. Like in Harvey's eyes, he's like, you should just be like more like Lars and like,
yeah,
I mean, hold it down.
Stick out your tongue and control your stick is not. It would.
I mean, like
I'll tell you this. I mean,
the job of the musicians is to get the crowd into it. So maybe a little more. I could be a little more animated and more, involved.
But not like Lars, please.
No, I will never wear spandex and play off time.
There's a line sort of between
Yeah.
you know musicianship and then musicianship is one skill and then performance is a separate skill, and
Hmm.
combining them may not be natural. You know, you could be an amazing musician and a terrible performer, or you could be a great performer and not that great of a musician. And so many people that are famous or whatever are fantastic performers and pretty good musicians. And it's like, all right, that's good enough. Like Yannick Gers from Iron Maiden, right? Half the time he's not even like, I guarantee you the sound guy's like, yeah, pull him right down, pull him right down. Oh, he's got a solo. Okay, turn him back up. Because he's like twirling his guitar and he's running around and he's doing all these things. And that's exciting. So I mean, it's all, you know, it's a multi sort of disciplinary kind of thing, you know, and it's all about sort of where your focus is. And like I was saying before, certainly in the 90s and with the kind of original incarnation of the band, I think our focus was too far on attitude and performance and not far enough on musicianship. Whereas now I think we've sort of found a comfortable medium where like, hey, we're playing the songs pretty much the same every night and we're playing them fairly accurately. And on, you know, of course, some nights are better than others, but you know, we've brought up the bad nights to like an acceptable level where it used to be like, hey, this show is great, and then the next show is fucking terrible, and you know we're off time and we stop in the middle of the song and stuff like that. So we're, you know, we found I think a good compromise, you know. But if the price to pay is Mike doesn't stand up on his kick drum and like fucking have machete pentagrams and blow fire, then that's the price.
Pay fucking money for that.
Yeah, I know. It just comes from the era where with Deeds, it was just, I'm back there just number crunching. I had no time to do any theatrics whatsoever. And then
Oh,
it's
for
like,
sure, yeah.
you know, and then with Exhumed, it's like the music is, it's, you know, it's
Simple
open and it's,
compared to-
no, it's just, it's not simple, but it's just open and it's just more structured where I have the freedom to, you know, if I wanted to, I could do it, but I'm just so in that mindset where it's just like, just hold it down, play, you know, as perfect as I can every night so that everybody can, you know, do the thing. But eventually I'll get into it.
The rest of us can take it a little bit.
Years.
I
The
mean,
rest
I'll
of us
just
can take it a little bit easy. We got
you know,
we got Baz with all the personality. in
yeah,
the world.
totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe in the third decade we'll get it together.
Yeah,
Right,
Well, I mean,
exactly.
I think that's the
40
job of the
generation
front
show.
guys. Just get up there.
No,
and,
no,
you know,
for sure.
You know, maybe I'll grow my little goatee out. I can like, do some
You just chin
windmills.
bang?
Yeah.
Chin
Chin
bang,
bang.
yeah.
Just wear a ghoul mask and confuse everyone.
Right.
That's ridiculous. Who would wear one of those things?
Yeah, no, that's,
Some idiots.
I was thinking actually today going to get beer. I was like, do you think Ghost, that band Ghost, the big band, do you think they ripped you guys off? Because they're the nameless ghouls and they all wear their shit and they don't say who the names are.
I don't think they ripped off Exhumed.
ripped off ghoul.
I
No.
think, well,
Who knows? Probably not.
they
Yeah,
ripped
yeah.
off Blue Oyster Cult. That's who they ripped off.
Oh,
well,
okay.
But I think with the Nameless Ghouls thing, honestly, is that the main dude, Tobias or whatever.
Yeah.
Tobias Funke. I know it's the guy from Arrested Development. Whatever. I think he basically is the band, and
Yeah, he
he
totally
doesn't
is.
want to pay anybody. Like
Yeah.
Scott from Repulsion is a good friend of mine, and he knows Tobias pretty well, and he's also tight with Hanke from In Solitude. After In Solitude broke up, Hanke got a gig playing with Ghost, and he did this whole U.S. tour. They're playing with like Iron Maiden and whatever, and he got home to Sweden and he got paid, and he was like, "This is like $500 a week. Like, what the fuck?" After Swedish
Jesus.
taxes, which are quite high, but it's a way that basically Tobias is like, it's my band, you all work for me, this is the structure, and nobody's gonna ever get any credit except me, and that's just the way it is. If you want to be in the band and play, killer.
It's
If you don't,
it's
who
pretty
cares?
smart. You put a mask on the musicians; they're pretty easily replaceable.
Yep. Unless it's like a huge fat guy going to a skinny guy or something.
right.
That works too.
Maybe you want to
I'm
diet.
sitting right here. Dude.
I've seen ghoul members mutate in strange ways. I don't know what there is
With the
about that.
alcohol.
Yeah, that
Tourism,
drummer really had a
burgers.
dramatic weight loss
Dude.
program. I don't know.
Yeah,
He just
Big
went
time.
keto, dude. He just went keto.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty shitty, but
I mean, a lot of bands you're noticing that's happening more and more where bands are going like, okay, we're a band that goes through a bunch of members, so this is how much you're getting paid a week is going to be the thing. We can make like 10 times that, but you're getting this base salary and that's about it.
I mean, I think that it was really disillusioning to me as a kid because I always thought like being in a band was like being in a gang, right? Like it's just you and your 3 or 4 friends against the world or whatever. And like when the whole thing, this is really dating myself here, but in 1990 when Terry Butler, Bill Andrews, and whoever went to Europe as Death without Chuck, and then Chuck fired everybody. I was like, I'm just gonna get a whole new band. I was like, you just got a whole new band on Leprosy. Like, what the fuck? Like, what? You did, like, this isn't even a band anymore. I actually like, when Human came out, I didn't even give it a chance. I was like, fuck Chuck, like fuck him, which is ironic, obviously playing Gruesome years later. But I was like, this isn't a band. This is just some guy fucking hiring people. Like, this is bullshit. At the same time, that's just how the music industry works. And ultimately, like, you know, if you're, once you get to a certain level, it becomes like a business arrangement as much as an artistic thing or a gang or whatever. And, you know, people now, they're so accustomed to these lineup changes where it used to be a huge deal. Like if somebody left the band, like, holy shit, like, oh my, you know, and when I was 16, if somebody left one of my favorite bands, I would have like, that would have fucked up my week, you know? Nowadays, I think people are so used to it. And we know that because, especially in underground music, when there's not really enough money for people to make a living, people will come and go because life changes happen. And all of a sudden you can't afford to like go out and just make hardly any money for a month because you have a kid or you have a wife or someone in your family is sick, or you just get tired of not making any money or whatever. And the audience expects that, you know, and so it's just sort of like reality infringing on like the rock and roll fantasy of it all. When you have everybody making tons of money and you're playing stadiums and then somebody leaves, it's like, oh, clearly there's some serious friction. But when you're an underground band and, you know, even like Suffocation level, Frank Mullen's like, fuck it, I make more money in my regular job. And like, what do I have to prove? I've made so many good records. I've played every single place. Like, what are we going to do on the 14th Suffocation album that we haven't done on the first 13? Like, I'm good. I just want to like relax now. And, you know, it's just sort of like the real world encroaching on rock and roll, you know?
I think
Totally, dude.
Now the interesting cases are a band like Gojira that have the same lineup their entire career, and that's like so cool and unique. So yeah,
I always think that must be amazing. Like, you know, my favorite band is Metallica, so I always just think like how neat it must be to, if you know, you went and played bass and sat in with them. Maybe Robert had a cold or he was at his kid's graduation or whatever. And I'm like, these three guys have been playing together since 1983. They've like written every song together except for like half the songs on Kill 'Em All. They've written together. So you could just be like, hey guys, you know this song? And they'd be like, yeah, probably, you know? And that's like a real neat idea that is so of its time, you know, like that is of a bygone era at this point.
It's definitely our era, you know what I mean? Like old school, like we're, you know, the same age. We grew up, like you get a band of brothers, you write music, you've been in a band with somebody since high school. You know, you jam with them until you can or cannot, or the success of the band doesn't, you know, does what you want it to do. But it was, you know, the mindset of we're brothers in this jam room, hashing it out, doing it together. We fail or succeed together. You know what I mean?
It's like the Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams, right?
Yeah.
We had a band and we tried real hard.
Yeah,
Jimmy
totally.
quit. Joey got married.
Yeah.
Should have known we never get far. It's like,
I didn't really have that feeling in Exhumed.
well, you know,
I felt like not a brother, pretty like overnight one time.
Stepbrother.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, you know, that was there was a lot of disillusionment, and you know, the '90s for me was like basically was like an entire decade of disillusionment.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know how much younger I am of you guys, but I still had a little taste of that, you know, right before the internet really got popular. I was already in a band before like I really knew what the fucking internet was. So it was just Wait, what? No, let's
No, no,
hear
no,
it.
no. I was kidding.
No, let's hear it, dude.
I said fucking Al Gore creating the internet.
Yeah, dude. But just getting people together from your local area and actually getting into a place where you're physically together. Now it's like so easy to put projects together through the internet, and I just feel like what you're touching on is, I hope that there's like an adaptation or some way where you can still have that for the future generations, where people just band together, like Mike was just saying, just a band of brothers where everybody get together and you build it together in the moment, not fucking, okay, here's what I did, I'm going to send it to you, now you be in a separate moment, add to it. It's like the moment.
It's a very weird thing because, like, yeah, I really do. I used to, we used to record and it would be like the whole band jamming in the room, like when we go record.
Right.
And then it was like a big step. All right, the guitars are going to overdub, but the bass and the drums are going to go all at once. And I really like that. I liked locking in with the drummer, and I liked actually having to practice the shit and know it before you go to the studio. Now it's like, all right, well, here's the tablature, here's the notation, and you're going to get sent the tracks, and you got 2 weeks. You don't know half these songs, so just go stick it out in the studio, and it's efficient. And it's great in a lot of ways. I mean, it's certainly, you waste a lot less time bullshitting around, but I do miss that. And I don't know people, as I'm older. We're all a bit older in this band. People go like, well, how do you do it? How do you get started? Where do you go? And I'm like, I don't fucking know anymore, man. Good luck. This shit's a totally different world. Like I don't know how you go from being the font band to the logo band on the festival flyer anymore. I got that little mid-sized logo in any band I'm in on a flyer, and I don't have to deal with the typeface level anymore. But so I don't know how you graduate out of that now. I'm just like, I'm going on inertia.
I mean, I think it's a big trade-off, and I think that it's especially important when you're younger and you're kind of like finding your style, to really have that sweat where you're just in a room 3 or 4 nights a week, pissing off your girlfriend, like, no, we're not going to movies or whatever, I'm going to go and jam with the band, and you're kind of figuring out how it all works. In about a month and a half, we're going to start recording our 8th album. So at this point, hopefully we know what we're doing. So we don't have to take that time. And also being, in our 40s, the 3 of us are in our 40s, Sebastian's in his 20s, but the 3 of us are in our 40s. And at a certain point, is it reasonable to tell your wife, like, yeah, no, I can't be around 4 nights a week because I got to go rehearse? It's like, that just sounds sort of silly,
It's a tough one, dude. When
you're 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, I think that's a very reasonable thing. But I feel like if you're still doing this, I'm 45. If you're still doing it, like, we should have figured it out by now. And there may be, there's a little sort of je ne sais quoi that you can't get without jamming together 4 nights a week. But at the same time, there's an experience, I think, that we all bring to it now, that we don't have to rely on that. We don't have to wait to catch lightning in a bottle. We can just manufacture our own lightning. That's the hope, because we've done this for a long time, and we all, we know each other's strengths, and we play. Also, the thing is, we play, like, not last year, obviously, but we normally play like, 100 shows a year minimum. So it's not like we don't get any time to hang out. We don't get any chemistry. We don't get to play together. But like everything, it's a trade-off. In a lot of ways, there's a lot more freedom nowadays, where I can just, Mike's in Ohio, Ross is in Oakland, I'm in San Luis Obispo, and I just send an email like, yo, here's this song. What do you think? Cool. Or, Ross and I work in Guitar Pro. We just use tablature. And I'll be like, here's the thing. And Ross is like, no, this should go 8 times, not 16. Oh, good point. Cool. And then there you go. And it just, rather than being in the room night after night after night after night after night, because hopefully at this point in our career, we've already gone through those steps. But yeah, I completely agree with what you said, Ross. It's like, I have no idea what you do as a kid. Like, what does a 16-year-old do? good luck, dude. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Well, the Exhumed formula has already been laid in place. Like the the music that Exhumed is known for is Matt Harvey writes all the music. We all collaborate, when it comes time to like rehearsing it, throw in ideas. But it's like the formula's there. It's just,
Yeah.
once we record, that's when we all the ideas come in, and then so.
And
I mean,
I don't know what it's like for
that,
other bands at all, basically, because I've always been in goofy, non-traditional bands, I guess. But like Exhumed, like at the beginning of the pandemic, we had like mini like Zoom drinking meetings together as a band. And so we do have a chemistry and a closeness amongst our members that's partially forged on the road, but also I think we've just managed to pick good like-minded people to be in the band, or Matt has basically surrounded himself with who he chose to be good like-minded people. And I've toured with Mike before when he was in Vile, and I always liked the guy and shit like that. And so, but yeah, we text with each other all the time. I don't know, do other bands do that? Do they like
well, Casey, Joel, and I talk almost every day, dude. Pretty much, dude. I keep in touch with these guys. Well, with the Odie, I don't even know if you know my history or our history, but Casey's my drummer and Joel's bass player and Odious Mortem.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yeah, and we keep in touch all the time. So I mean, but we've grown close over the years as like real best friends, brothers. It's like regardless of what we've done, because we've had a lull of not working together at all.
Like everybody, yeah.
But you guys have also had that old school, where you guys all knew each other at a younger age and came up together. So
yeah, and we had our first full like touring experience together. It's like it's going into battle, dude. When you do those things with those people, like you solidify a relationship.
And like I was gonna say, Ross, man, like we had like a ton of respect for you, man. Like back in the day, like going to those like Impaled shows, man, that shit was
Casey's rocking an Impaled shirt.
I was like,
one of his first Odious.
Like in 2004,
band
I had, like,
photos where they
shirt.
are rocking the crossed arms or something.
Not me. I was like a dork.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm doing a callback. That's cool.
Oh, like, totally, dude.
Do you think Tobias Forge like gets on Zoom call, like texts like the nameless ghouls and is like, "What's up, dudes? Miss you guys." like Mike Hamilton, it's like, "Hey guys, miss you." Like real sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
that's that.
It's genuine. It's not sarcastic. If I said it, it's sarcastic.
Yeah, man.
I tell these
That's
guys
your role in the band, though.
I tell these guys I love them probably way more than they want to hear, dude. I really do. And doing this podcast real quick, I will say I have a genuine love for the Professor Joseph too, as well.
Oh, thanks, man.
What's up, dude?
And if I wanted to give another perspective, just from the what's it like these days, I'll tell you, I joined a band during the pandemic, and we've just had like Zoom. It's Discord, but we have video meetings. And I haven't met the other guys in person. I mean, one of the other dudes in person yet. And we're still like trying to figure out if we mesh like personality wise and everything.
How trip is that to hear?
It's
dude,
fun
from
figuring
your
it out.
Generation.
And from the more, from the more musical side, like the project started as a one-man band. And it's just one of those solo projects. He programs the drums, records everything. And now the challenge is not doing that, but rather finding people willing to play your music, because everyone has their own project. And it's like, is it good enough that I want to abandon my own project just to play for someone else? That's kind of the idea. It's like, is it? And in this case, it's so, like, the music is so good that I'm like, dude, this is going to take me further than I could go myself. And that's kind of the decisions people are making. But it starts as these solo projects, people with their ideas grouping together, as opposed to that's three of us. We don't know anything. Let's just figure it out together. That's a little different now. That doesn't happen as much. So
right. Well, I think the thing is too, when you're starting out now, you have access to so much more information, not just about how to execute the music, because, in the late 80s, early 90s, like how do you play a blast beat? That was a fucking mystifying thing. Like, I don't know. I've never seen a band that does this live. Like, what do you do? But there's so much more information about playing the music. There's more information about the business side of it. And there's an expectation, I think, now that part of being a musician is kind of grooming yourself to be a commodity and marketing yourself and posting on Instagram and whatever. And
Mhm.
that's just part of the thing. Whereas I know when I was approaching it as a kid, I was like, I don't care about that. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I just want to think about writing sick riffs. Like that's it. That's my job. I'm just a riff writer. That's it. And that's people, they've got the benefit of information now, so they see it as a more integrated whole.
We just made shit up. We would do like guerrilla marketing for ourselves. We would go to the local Tower Records and stick all our show flyers in the metal magazines like a month in advance.
Right.
That was
I remember that.
Early trolling.
Did I just hear Tower
Analog trolling.
Just roll into a Kinko's with your squad and making stickers and J cards for your
yeah.
demo tapes, you know?
Oh yeah, we got to know the lady at the Kinko's real well. She'd give us
Cheryl.
like fat discounts.
Yeah. I also think one of the great things about playing in a band too, as life has gone on and we've all gotten older, one of the things that, I saw with my own parents or whatever, is that the older you get, the harder it is to have friends, because you've got a job, you've got responsibilities, maybe you got kids, you got this and that. And some of the best times I've ever had have just been like sitting around with my friends talking about stupid shit, getting drunk, and being able to be in my mid 40s and still have those experiences like for months at a time. Not recently because of the pandemic, but being able to go out for 4 or 5 weeks with my friends and just be in a van and just shooting the shit. Ross and I will be talking about, 70s Marvel comics and bumming everybody out. Sebastian and I will be talking about 70s Kiss and bumming most people out or whatever. But just getting a chance to still have those relationships as a grown ass man, that's like super valuable. And it's something that is hard to do. Like the older you get and the more adult you get in life, it's really hard to have good friendships, especially in the United States. It's not like England where you stop at the pub for 2 hours before you go home from work and the whole neighborhood's there and everybody you grew up with and you don't shoot the shit. We don't have that same culture.
It sounds
here.
fucking dope though.
It's super valuable, and I think that's been one of the things that's grating on me during the pandemic is like, like my wife and I just start annoying each other and we're just having a normal conversation. And I'm like, this is annoying. And it's like, oh yeah, because I've been home for fucking 15 months. Like, dude, normally I'd leave, and it's the same thing for her. She's like, normally you're gone. Like, fuck, come on. So
you get moments like this is going to be terrible but you get moments like this on the road.
Oh, is this?
Oh yeah.
Right?
What's the song?
I think it's
Video
probably
audio's
Thin
cutting
Lizzy. I
out.
don't know.
We can't hear it, but we can
No.
see it.
Yeah, it sounds like shit. I think what's that fucking dumb LA retro band that you guys both like? They sing about like sex and dicking around.
Steel
What,
Panther.
Steel Panther?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's a
Oh,
Steel
yeah,
Panther
Steel
song you're
Panther.
singing.
Yeah.
Oh, probably
Oh,
Stripper Girl or something. Yeah.
Probably,
Something.
yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of good moments like that on the road with just bullshitting.
Yeah.
I guess that's the hangout time. We don't get it as much in the rehearsal, but we try to make up for it by just being dickheads on the road.
It's
Yeah, I
also a
guess
testament to like, the bond that a band has, the success of a band. Really, like, you can like send files to each other and create a killer album and it's awesome. But you stick 5 motherfuckers in a van and you cruise the United States for 5 weeks and see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I was just thinking that's the thought that I was having. I was like,
So
I
if you
just
can do that and you guys can not kill each other and also have successful tour, like it's a testament to like, the strength of a band, to be honest.
I was wondering if Casey and Joel and I would have kept in touch pretty much every day if we had been a touring band. We'd probably get the fuck over each other and do the same exact thing you guys are doing, is taking breaks.
I mean, like when you get done, it's cool to like not talk to everybody for like 2 weeks, but like 2 weeks and like you're good. It's just like with your chick. It's good to get away for like 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks go by and you're like, oh, I wonder what she's doing. Like it'd be cool to like fucking get laid or cuddle or whatever.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah, and of course we get saturated with each other, but I mean.
We also have a lot of fun, it's a blast. We're out there doing what we love to do. We're having a blast. We're supporting each other. We're tight knit. We're taking care of each other, getting on each other's nerves, making sure everybody's good. It's like, it's that.
It's it's if that's one piece of advice I could impart to kids, younger people than me, is like just drop the fucking ego, share things. No one's job is more important than anybody else's job. Like everybody should kind of do their part. Exhumed has that. Mike is a great mother who takes care of everybody. He hates when I call him that, but it's true. He's looking out for everybody. Everybody moves.
He's our dad. He's our dad, and he's your
we always
mom,
call him our
dude.
dad. Yeah.
We're siblings, dude.
Yeah.
We have kind of a thing, like we just have a dynamic that works, you know, like Mike and I are sort of like the mom and dad. Mike is always like, oh, is everybody okay? I'm like, they're fine. They can goddamn take care of them fucking selves. And it's just enough of both, you know, and
ours the tough love and I'm the nurturer.
And Ross is also, he's the cynic. Like Sebastian's the young idealist. Like it's just the power of rock, man. Like our rock music is going to see us through. And then Ross is the guy who's like, nothing will work. You're all idiots. And so we have a good balance of everything, you know, where we're a very DIY band. And that's something that kind of took me a while to kind of accept that that's, if you want to keep doing this at an underground level, it's just a lot of fucking work. Like there's a lot of stuff that isn't just coming up with sick riffs. Like in my dream, I just want to come up with sick riffs. I don't care about anything else, but I have to in order to like keep having an audience for the sick riffs. Yeah. And we all work together and everybody works hard and we pull together. And, you know, we're not geniuses or anything, but we don't have like a master plan, but everybody comes together as a team. And, you know, some days maybe somebody slacks off and somebody else picks up the slack for them. Usually me. I'm usually the slacker, not the person picking up the slack. But it really does become like a family dynamic with a band that is going to like function and stand the test of time. And you know, for me, that's always sort of whatever else I'm doing. I do a lot of other bands and projects, but I always look at Exhumed as like my main band because it's the most family-ish band, you know, and sort of everything else that I'm doing spirals off from that family, you know.
It's like the beacon of your creativity. It's like where it all started, and then you branched out a little bit.
It's the center of gravity.
Nobody else is going to work harder for your band than yourself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like we print our own shirts when we can. You know, we've got a studio. We record our own music. We're trying to do as much stuff on our own as we can, just to keep, you know, other hands out of it and have more control over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, control, ownership. You know, all those things sort of become important. Not that, you know, when I was a little kid, I thought there was going to be a guy in a suit being like, you guys should make a love ballad. And I have to be like, no, sir, we're a death metal band. We don't do that. Like that's not the kind of control issues that exist. But it is just about being able to, you know, control your own destiny, make your own decisions, call your own shots, and do things on your own terms for the right reasons, not just making an album because somebody is saying like, well, guys, it's been 2 years and blah, 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 you know.
And just streamlining and showing thrift on these things, like not, you know, there is that DIY punk ethic. Maybe, I don't know if we kind of had it as teenagers, like, because I mean, I also grew up listening to punk rock and stuff, but you know, like Mike, there's a printing press in the Exhumed studio. Mike and Matt, how much? I don't know if you do a bunch of printing, but I know Mike does.
I don't do printing.
So Matt doesn't print. Matt makes riffs. Mike prints the shirts. I'm doing graphic layouts for different shit, making posters, printing that shit up. And I've just always kind of liked that ethic of, I don't even know how much of it's just, but I'm just all and just go in guns blazing and just try to make as much out of this as you can. You don't rest on laurels, and you don't wait for someone else to do something for you.
Mm-hmm. That's cool, Mike, that you're still printing up the t-shirts. You were doing that over at the Unique Leader headquarters for a while, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a talent that just won't ever escape me.
I
also enjoy it. I enjoy creating and you know, keeping our costs low so the band can make as much money as possible so we can pay ourselves, pay bills, and you know, and have creative control.
You're like the friend with the truck that has the truck that everyone, I need to help move. It's called the friend with the truck.
Well, I think, I think about it sometimes, and a lot of the things that we've done, especially in the last few years, as far as like I'm sitting right here in our studio. This is the control room, our live room where we recorded the last album and stuff is over there. The screen printing shop is right there. And, Mike has sort of pushed me into these things that I was kind of resistant towards. I was always like, well, it's a lot of work. I want someone else to do it, whatever. Yeah, we'll make less money or have less control. And I feel like Mike for me, has been like that, coming from being in Deeds, where Eric obviously had his own label and he was printing his own shirts and he was booking Deeds shows and he was doing everything. Mike was able to sort of see the advantages of that and push us in that direction, to a healthy amount where, the issue with Deeds was that Deeds was sort of the flagship band of the label, so that the money that was made from Deeds maybe went more into Unique Leader than into the band itself. We don't have that issue because we're not running a record label and I'm not trying to break X number of bands or whatever. But he was able to see the positive sides of that, and we've been able to sort of incorporate that into what we do. And I think we're in a much better place going forward. And obviously this last year has really changed what we wanted to do from a business standpoint. However, it's still going to be beneficial when things resume, hopefully, the next 6-7 months.
Yeah, nobody anticipated the pandemic, but I mean, the idea is to be self-sufficient, to have, a compound where you can do everything, record your own stuff and
right.
print your own stuff and just have more control. And that was the vision. And, and it's like, had it not been for the pandemic, we would have been able to utilize our space more, obviously, but
right.
I mean,
we've tried to
in the future, and that's the whole thing. We build a place, a foundation where we can, have camp Exhumed and do everything Exhumed out of our one spot.
But when the world throws you lemons, you still make lemonade. We still had stuff this year,
right?
For sure, we still did stuff.
We still,
I did the split with Gruesome, or
that was already in the works.
Okay,
that was going to be
for a tour.
Come out with a tour. But I mean, we'd put out basically 3 live shows.
Yeah.
On the internet, because we just can't stop working, even if we can't be working.
We got to really have no choice. I mean, that's the other thing, is that we're committed now to, paying the overhead here on having our own studio, and that drives the work. The necessity of working drives the work, which to me, I don't find contradictory to being creative at all. I actually find it to be stimulating, having something to do.
Shakespeare had bills.
That's right. I mean, Ingmar Bergman, like when he was making the Seventh Seal, he was like, I don't know, it was a project that came to the studio and I did it. And then 3 months later, I was working on some other film. And it's like, wow, you just made the greatest movie in history. Cool. And then a year later, you just made Wild Strawberries. Like, holy shit. So to me, the creativity comes from working. It's not that the working comes from creativity. I don't sit around waiting for a fucking spark. It's like, this is what we do. So it's going to, it's going to happen.
I was going to ask about Mike. I was texting you about, so the first album that you did, joining, was it Necrocracy?
Yeah, Necrocracy. That was 2000.
Right.
That is a fucking amazing album, dude.
Yeah, it was fun to record, and it was, for me, it was a nice change. Matt wrote all the music for it, and he's like, I've been demoing this stuff for a while, and I was at a turning point where, Deej is not active. Eric didn't want to tour because he was more focused on label stuff. Matt had just moved to the Central Coast, and I knew he was moving to the Central Coast. I said, we'll just jam out a couple times, and that turned into be like, hey, well, why don't you join the band? Because I don't have a drummer. I have a new album. So, we went for, I think, a couple years touring on the Long Guts, No Glory.
Yeah, that was a long tour cycle.
That was long tour cycle. So that was my introduction to the band. Like, I knew Matt would move to the Central Coast. I've known him for years from the Bay Area. And for me, it was a spark. It was like, cool, this is an opportunity to just jam with somebody, because Eric wasn't really into jamming. He had the carpal tunnel and all that. So it's like, started off to be, just kind of like You know,
What's the first song you jammed with him?
oh shoot, I
It's
don't
probably
know.
a
He's-
Celtic Frost cover.
yeah, maybe.
Nice.
Yeah, no, but it was nice because it was just, you know, it was a breath of fresh air. It was a new style of music to play, and Matt was a super driven guy and is, you know, outgoing and just super fun to be around, and you know, we created a friendship real quick, and it was just it's kind of nice, you know. But Necrocracy, when we did that record, it was just it was my opportunity to kind of put my style, you know, on the drumming, you know, of Exhumed, and it was fun. Had a great time, and he gave me the, you know, the creative freedom just to kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, he's like, here's the basic format, and then just, you know, put your flair on it. And I was like, all right, cool. So
I think I've listened to that album like at least 10 times in the last like week and a half. Like, and
Wow. I thought you
and-
say 10 times ever, and I was like, that's nice of you. Oh, it's only 3.5.
and
Holy shit.
everything, dude. All of like I've been listening the Twisted Horror thing and all that, and the Death Revenge and horror and the new, dude. I've been rocking it.
Oh,
I love
awesome,
it
man.
all.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's what's good about Casey is that he definitely he goes deep on the discography and he definitely freshens up those ears before he does
Nice.
an episode.
I think the thing that was cool for me was, you know, I knew Mike for a long time, sort of as like a, you know, an acquaintance, whatever. We weren't like tight bros from back in the day, but we were definitely like very friendly. Like if I saw him, I'd be like, hey, what's up, man? And, you know, the thing I guess that we sort of bonded on when we started jamming was because he's coming from more of like a tech death thing, and I'm more of like a punk thrash infused kind of death metal. And it was like, well, where's our common ground? It's like, oh, I love Merciful Fate, you love Merciful Fate. I love Celtic Frost, you love Celtic Frost. Like, so it was almost more like the pre-death metal or proto-death metal stuff that we sort of found the common ground on, you know. Obviously, Deeds is much more technique-driven than Exhumed. Exhumed is much more rock-oriented, but it wasn't hard at all to sort of find that chemistry and find where, like, you know, like I said, we arrived at the same place just from opposite directions, and it was pretty easy to pick up that thread.
It helps that Mike is one of the few technical drummers who can actually also groove.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that came from, you know, just years of, like Matt said, I grew up listening to the same classic rock, classic metal stuff, and that's kind of where my heart lies, is with thrash and, you know, classic death metal. And so it was just a nice, you know, for me, transition to go from the super tech deed stuff to just kind of go into something that I basically started with like, you know, Violence and Exodus and Testament and the Bay Area stuff, and then, you know, just build on that. So that's kind of my roots. So it was a natural, you know, kind of progression to get into the Exhumed style, just add some more blast beats, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
we played with like John Longstreth on a couple tours, who is obviously an incredible drummer.
Yep.
And this was, you know, 2004 now. And at the time, John was so focused on presenting the John Longstreth brand of drumming that he couldn't really like get past that. So I was a little wary of playing with like a tech death drummer again. But, you know, Mike is super humble and is not, you know, he doesn't give a shit about the Mike Hamilton brand. I mean, even playing with Danny Walker on All Guts, and he did some of the Anatomy of Destiny touring as well. He was trying to build the Danny Walker brand of drumming. That was his thing. Whereas Mike is a guy who's like, I'm in the band. Like, I just want to be in a band. Like, I'm going to do, you know, he has his own style, but he's not out to sort of be like, force his personality onto the band. He's like, he plays to the song, you know, which is, and that's really, you know, maybe because I'm egotistical and I remember most of the songs, but it's like, that's what I want everyone to play to the song.
But I mean, Matt, you undersell yourself. You're not like super fascist about it. He's let me build up the Ross brand of bass playing, which is largely poor.
No, it's
And he lets me do it.
That see, I don't think of it as poor. I think of it as like establishing root notes, which is sort of a lost art, because so many like bass playing is about root notes, and bass playing is about playing with the drummer. That's how you play bass. That's how Rudy Sarzo fucking plays bass. That's how Steve Harris plays bass. Geezer Butler, Cliff Burton. Well, maybe not Cliff so much, but that's just bass playing. You're supposed to play the fucking root note. You're not supposed to play everything the guitar's playing, because you're supposed to fill up the space because the guitar is busy. And I mean, I don't know, like I've, as the years have gone by, when we started, I was like a death metal grindcore guy. Then I became like a thrash guy. Then I became like a hard rock guy. Like sometime around like 2002, I was like, cool. My frame of reference is now UFO and Diamond Head and Thin Lizzy. Like that's what I want to do, but playing death metal and grindcore. And I think having simplified bass lines fits in with like the rock paradigm. And I think that that's something that death metal sort of lost along the way towards brutality in the name of becoming more extreme, bro. Whereas like Slowly We Rot and Scream Bloody Gore and Symphonies of Sickness and so on are still rooted in some kind of rock-ish tradition. And that's sort of what we tried to.
Matt sends me when we start working on a record, he usually sends me the stuff without bass lines. So I guess he does have some kind of faith in me.
Right, that's your job.
I tease a lot, but and he teases me for not warming up before shows very often. But he does send me the stuff, and that is my thought with bass playing is like it's not there. I'm not there to Steve DiGiorgio it out. I don't need to do a bunch of tapping that won't even get picked up in the mix. Right. I want to be there to really effectively drive the kick drum harder with the melody and keep the rhythm going. And so yeah, I think that is something lost on some bass players, at least, is you are part of the rhythm section. You're not a lead player. I got vocals to keep me distracted if anything's too simple or whatever. But yeah, I'm more into not the flash, but just driving the beat and working with Mike. And that's another pleasure working with Mike, is Mike is really good on tempo and steady to play with. And part of the reason I was really willing to rejoin with Exhumed was because not only had I toured with Mike and he was a super nice guy to tour with, but I was like, he's a fucking great drummer. I really want to jam with him and be in that rhythm section.
Hell yeah.
And work
going back
that.
to the bass stuff, that's sometimes you got to know your role. I mean, not know your role, but just if you want to contribute to the music the most, because with Decrepit and stuff, I could be doing all the riffs with Matt and stuff like that, but I kind of wanted it like to accent just the heavy stuff. I wanted that to stick out the most. If it's simpler, if it's dumber, it fucking makes it sound better. I don't, that's all that really matters to me.
Just I think that's the way to go with playing bass. You're not trying to flash. I mean, you can have your little moments, you can have your little bass runs, bass fills, as long as it's appropriate. But I think you can't forget that you're there to work with the drums. Exactly. And that, the guitars will carry the melody, and you're just this undercurrent of sound that can really drive it. I mean, even if you listen to like old disco, where they're playing some crazy technical shit, but it never detracts from the overall melody of the song. It's always working to keep the rhythm going, keep people dancing.
Yeah, you're not stealing focus. You're basically you're accenting everything. Yeah.
That was one of the important things for me to, assuming the role of drummer in Exhumed, I didn't want to, bring in my personality. I wanted to keep the format and keep it true to the Exhumed sound, because I respected Cole so much and the band and their sound. I didn't want to I'm not doing bomb blast in the middle of a fucking Exhumed song. Like I'm going to stick to the format, add my personality to it, but not so drastically where it changes the sound of the song. Mm-hmm. I had my opportunity to do that on new albums, but when it came to learning the old material, I was pretty set on learning it the way that it was written and recorded, and just keep it true to the sound. Because as a fan of music, the worst is when you go to listen to a band live and they have a new member and then they completely change the song that it to be. And just well, why does that guy get to do that? Why does he get to change the sound of the whole band because he's the new guy? It's just stick to the format of the band, play the music the way it's supposed to be played, add your personality, but, just keep it true. Coming from a fan's point of view, that's where my drive was, to play the music and Exhumed the way that it was recorded and people expect it to sound.
That kind of reminds me of when I saw Necrophagus and they had one of the best drummers in the world, Marco Miniman, playing drums for them, and I was and they he went bananas with all these extra little, and I was like, dude, it's away from this. I understand you're one of the best in the world. Yeah, you're one of the best in the world. I get it, but right, just do your role for this band shouldn't be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I remember that specifically. I went to go see Exhumed when they played in Santa Barbara. Me and Jacoby went down there, and that's Longstreth was playing with them at the time, and not to I'm not talking any bad shit about Longstreth. He's great at what he does, but I remember a specific part in one of the songs he just dropped into a bomb blast. It was just like I was so confused. I was like, well, what? I've never heard this beat on any Exhumed album whatsoever. Like it makes no sense. But like in the moment, that's a testament to like just play the music that the band is known, to represent. Don't put your flair on it because you're trying to promote yourself. It's like the band, the music
Yeah.
is the music. Play the music for what
And
it is.
I know exactly what section you're talking about. There's like this solo part that the riff's just like dude, so I can just do my little bit, and then all of a sudden launch with dude. I was like trying to play my solo, and I was like, "What the fuck is this guy doing?" And I love John, and we're really good.
Yeah, we all love him.
And we
to
laugh
death.
about it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
And I
of
know
course.
that he wouldn't do that now, but he was a young Turk that was just out to
Yeah.
prove. I think it was right when he got fired from Origin and was moving to Skinless, so he really had something to prove, and he was just all about like, "Yo, check this out, boom!" And we weren't the right band for that. But
Yeah, so
I
that's the
love
thing.
John.
I just kept it, kept it honest to what Exhumed's all about, and just compliment, not try to overpower. You know what I mean?
And that was weird for me because I was like, this guy has more respect for our songs than I do. I'm like, this song sucks. This fucking drumming is stupid. Just do whatever you want. And he's like, no, I'll just do the same thing. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, man. It's the integrity of the song. Play what's there.
Matt, can I ask you about playing the Death to All stuff? I think Casey and I both went to the San Francisco show.
Oh, cool.
And that was one of the best metal shows I've ever seen. I know behind the scenes, I heard stories or accounts or whatever, but like just from the perspective of a fan going, that was so sick. Gorgut's opening, you coming out to do the old stuff, and then that was just one of the fucking coolest events of my life. I still remember that so well. How was it getting to do that whole event?
I mean, it was a very weird, the whole situation was sort of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like many things in my career, I was not the first choice. Stefan from Obscura was supposed to be there. And I guess it was about 9 days before the first gig, it became clear he was not going to get his visa. And so I was contacted. I'd met Eric Greif, who's like was the on and off death manager, and he manages the IP for Chuck's Estate or whatever. And he's also Relapse's lawyer. So I'd met him when we played in Calgary, where he was living, and he promoted our show. And I think I just saw on the contact sheet, I was like, Eric Greif, are you Eric Greif that produced that like Numbskull record and used to manage Death? And he's like, yeah, I am. And so I got in this big conversation with him and talking about different bands in Milwaukee area that he used to manage, Numbskull and Viaggression and so on and so forth. And, whatever, we got on and he was a nice guy. And then I saw him again in Los Angeles for some sort of Relapse Scion thing. I think he was there as a lawyer. And I said, oh, I heard that there's going to be this Death reunion thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a guy, like I sing in a kind of a similar register to Chuck, and I know all the lyrics to the first 3 albums, like off the top of my head. And I didn't really think much of it. And that was the end. And then they started announcing it. And 9 days before the first gig, I got this email like, oh, Stefan's probably not going to make it, but he might make it. Would you be willing to learn the songs just in case? Because he might still come or he may not, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. And so I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare, and I wasn't really clear on what I was going to be doing, And so I drove up to the first rehearsal. I think we had like 2 days of rehearsal, maybe 2.5 days of rehearsal. And it was a really weird scene because there's like, 12 people there that were rotating in and out. And, for me, I'm more familiar with the first 3 albums. Like that's how I learned how to play guitar, was like learning those riffs by ear. And to come in and play like The Philosopher was a song I was like, I'm not that familiar with it, like compared to, Regurgitated Gods or Mutilation or, Born Dead or whatever. And so the very first thing I did was I'm just sitting there, and it was like Gene Hoglan, Steve DiGiorgio, I want to say Bobby Coble maybe, or it might have been Shannon. And we're playing, I think, Zero Tolerance. And I'm just sitting there like, I learned this song. I heard the song probably for the first time like 2 weeks before. I've been learning it for like 8 or 9 days. And like Luke LeMay from Gorguts and all these people, like Paul Masvidal, Sean Reiner, they're just sitting around, like just hanging out. And then we're like, okay, let's run through the song. And I was like, this is so fucking awkward. And we're playing the song and the tempo's kind of dragging. And I was like, what do I do, dude? Like, and we got done playing the song and I was like, Gene, because I met Gene a few times, but I felt like in my mind, they'd be like, Mr. Hoagland. I was like, it seemed like the tempo was like kind of slow, man. He's like, yeah, man, I'm tired today, dude. It's tempo's dragging. I'm gonna kick it up. And I was like, okay. Because I was so fucking nervous, you know, like growing up, like Dark Angel, Sadist, Death. I mean, those are like, you know, some of my favorite bands.
Mhm.
Totally.
And anyway, we got to the first rehearsal and the second rehearsal, they went pretty good. And then I think we played at the club at the Regency or the Regent, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that rehearsal didn't go very good. I couldn't hear because the club was empty and it was real echoey and I felt nervous. And I remember walking around San Francisco like the day before the first show. And I was like, you know what? Fuck these guys. Like, fuck them. Like, I'm not going to give them that much respect. It's like, no, I'm here because I should be. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't even like strapping young lad. Who gives a fuck? Whatever. Fuck these guys. And before the show, I fucking went and I drank like 4 beers and I took a shot and I went to the fucking bathroom and jerked off to relax. And I remember coming out on stage and it was like the first song was The Philosopher and it was just like as soon as it started, everyone's like, I know this song. And I was like, all right, cool. Like and then I just felt relaxed and I was in the driver's seat. And honestly, as soon as the audience got into it, I felt very comfortable because I wasn't thinking like, holy shit, dude, I'm jamming with the guy that played on Darkness Descends, because, you know, sober and without the audience to focus on, that's what I was thinking about. I was like, holy dude, this guy played on Hunger of the fucking Undead. Like, I can't believe it. This is amazing. And anyway, so I sort of psyched myself into it. And after the first show, it got much easier, but it was really like kind of fucking terrifying, to be honest.
Crazy.
Yeah. You heard it here first, guys. 4 beers, a shot, and a wank session.
Right?
You're ready to fucking play with any fucking band, dude.
You get relaxed. I mean, that's the thing, is like I can't carry around all that tension. It just makes me, you know, overthink things. So I had to just turn my brain off a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a perfect mindset. The fuck it, dude. I don't fucking, you know, that actually calms you down so much. It's like it's like almost like the audience is naked kind of thing. Like, it's like, fuck it, I don't fucking care. Like, I don't give a shit. Like,
they call me, so yeah,
they call me, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I think it was honestly, it was more like sports. Like, you know, I just thought of like the 70s Raiders playing the Steelers, who are like, you know, the best team in football at the time. And the Raiders, everyone looks down and I'm like, oh, these guys are just a bunch of fucking thugs from the street. They play dirty ball. This guy's got fucking shit taped all over his arms. Like, fuck them. They're just like bullshit. And it's like, you know what? I don't owe fucking Terry Bradshaw anything. Like, fuck that guy. And it's weird because obviously we're all on the same team, but for me, I had to disassociate a little bit because I would have been like, oh my God, I'm playing with Steve DiGiorgio. This is so great. Yeah. And that's the mindset that would make me.
Yeah, you could be in the middle of a riff and overthink it and fucking think like oh shit,
yourself,
that's just
take yourself
perfect mindset.
At the end of the day, you know how to play your instrument. You know how to, you know the song.
Right.
Do it perfect in your room every day. Like, I mean, just because there's a fancy guy sitting behind you doesn't mean you need to fuck that up.
Are you talking about playing riffs or jacking off?
The fancy guy behind me, he helps me out. He gives me tips. Grip it like
you're making me nervous. I can't quite fit it, bro. Can you turn your head to the left?
Can I finish?
I'm
just imagining Gene Hoagland dressing fancy, dude.
Well, and that's the thing is especially Gene, like he was the nicest guy, and he was the easiest to jam with. Like Steve is a little bit of a ball buster, great dude. Like I love Steve, but Gene is like a really nice, like just a real sweetheart. He's a teddy bear, and you know, he obviously he's Gene Hoagland. You don't like come in like you're hot shit or whatever, but he treats everybody great, and he's very easy to work with, and he was very helpful. And Sean Reiner, you know, he actually ended up becoming like my buddy on that tour.
Fuck.
And
that's awesome, dude.
because he would always wear a Heat jersey, and so we would just start talking about basketball. At the time, like the Warriors were quite hot, as you know, were coming up before they became like the dynasty team, and so we would just sit around and talk about basketball. And then what was great about Sean is that obviously he's a jazz fusion guy, but he also was like a hardcore punk guy. And I was like, Sean Reinert's into like Ludacris and Cryptic Slaughter, like sick. And he's from South Florida, so of course we would both be like in the back of the bus just fucking doing bumps and shit and just like talking shit. And I was like, this guy is more fun than anybody. Like I love Sean, you know. That's why I was so gutted when he died, just completely unexpectedly. But out of everybody on that tour, like he and I, like for whatever reason, just bonded, you know.
Damn. R.I.P. Sorry, Joseph, I cut you off earlier, dude.
Oh no.
I don't know what you were gonna say, but I'm sorry.
Oh no, dude, all good. I just thanks for sharing. That's like that's why we do this podcast, is just
These
to get
stories dude.
like that.
Right.
That's what we're going for, man. That's all it's all
Most
about.
definitely, dude.
Just do cocaine.
Well, that tour was
talk
the
about basketball
tour that
with
spawned.
Sean Reinert. It's great.
What's that, Mike? What'd you say, Mike?
That's the tour that spawned the conversation between Harvey and Gus Rios.
No, that was not that tour. That was
It
the
wasn't?
Suffocation tour.
Okay.
Where, because they asked me to do the second Death to All thing, but it was like, because the first one, it was sort of a mishmash because Sick Drummer was kind of running the show, and then Eric kind of came in and he was running the show. And so there was a lot of questions about getting paid. In fact, one of the things that I've still held on to is my bounce check from that tour. I'll probably always keep that just as a reminder. Don't ever take a check. That's Mel Brooks, right? Never take a check. And so they asked me like, oh, do you want to do this? And do you want to do that? And I was like, well, you know, this is sort of a weird thing. I don't want to, I don't know who's in control of it, and I don't know where it's going. Whereas my own band, like I know that in 5 years, it's still going to be us in control, and I'm not going to like prioritize Death to All over Exhumed. So we were out with Suffocation. Suffocation went to Canada. We can't get into Canada because Mike has DUI. I have a DUI. Our old guitar player Bud has 2 DUIs. Dylan has our production guy, Dr. Filthy. He has DUI. So
I can enjoy as much poutine as I want.
Ross can get into Canada, right?
They love me there.
Right. So we just, you know, our agent was like, book these shows without Exhumed and we'll meet back up with you. So one of the fill dates was actually 2 of the fill dates was with Death to All. We played in Silver Springs, Maryland, and Worcester, Mass. And that's where I met Gus. And Gus and I were talking like, oh yeah, Death to All is cool, but like, what if it was, you know, James Murphy, Terry Butler, Gus Rios, and me, and we just played the first 3 albums. Like, now that would be the Death to All that I want to see. And then I just said to Gus, like, oh, well, you know, if Eric doesn't make it happen, like, we'll just make our own band that sounds just like Death, and that would be hilarious. Anyway, so yeah, here we are. Doing
Boom.
And that shit is rad, dude. And Gruesome is sick as fuck. And I hope I can catch you guys live sometime, man.
Well, I hope so. I hope we get to play live again soon. You know, I mean, that's just a really fun, like, labor of love or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Ross, I had a question for you, just from a friend. He asked me to ask you about I got a text. I might be in an awkward situation because he texted me after that you guys broke up awkwardly. But Ludacris, he was asking, "What's up?" I mean, is that even a thought? Is that even still going, or what's going on with that?
It's not definitely not going, but I mean, what's going right now? But there was. I'll say this without revealing too much because there's not really anything to reveal yet. There was some talks about some things. Creatively, Ludacris will never ever exist again. I could say that much. Like, there's never going to be another Ludacris record. But there might be some reason to jam some Ludacris riffs at some point. There would have been possibly for this year, but that's out of the question. So if people's health keep up, who knows? Maybe there'll be some reason for me to practice some old songs.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's about all I can really say in the middle of a pandemic when nothing ever quite came together.
So there's two female singers in that? Is that
There was it was the lineup was me on bass, Aesop Hantman on drums, John Cobbett on guitar, and then Lori Sue Shanneman was on vocals, and then Christy Cather was on guitar and vocals. Christy and Lori are continuing to play in a band called Ailes, which is not too
Oh.
dissimilar from Ludacra, and
I've
it's
seen
definitely
them.
worth your time to check out if you're
Yeah.
a fan of Ludacra style material. So they're jamming together. I jammed with them a little bit when they started, but I just didn't really have the time when I had a bunch of shit going on. And I was like, you guys should just go do your thing and without me. And that way it's maybe a little bit less of Ludacra part 2 or something.
Yeah.
And, but I mean, we all keep up texting with those guys and talking with them here and there, like through the pandemic and through the years. So
Nice.
it's all very friendly now. Nothing harsh to say about it. It was a shitty breakup, but that happened.
That's
But
what
we're all
that's what,
friends still.
That's what my buddy was saying, that like I mean, he's all, ask him about this, and then like right after, like I saw the text after, he's like, I guess the guitar player, someone like broke up, and then the two female singers found out online or something. And I was like,
Yeah, that happened. It was pretty shitty. There was a lot of shit. There was a lot of shitty behavior all the way around, and there was a couple people I didn't talk to for quite some time. But again, we're all friends now. I mean, shit, I didn't talk to Matt for like 10 fucking years, but
we fired Ross in a very shitty way. It was not cool at all. So
was it
Well,
like
I
an
mean,
insane way?
tensions had gotten high. We were kids. We were shitty. We've had long discussions about this before I was even back in the band officially. Long, very drunken discussions.
well, we were talking about some feelings. At least I was. I mean,
We
so
talked
I-
about feelings, and then we talked about how hot the lady from Buck Rogers was, Erin Gray.
Great. Oh, she's so hot.
That's kind of how the conversation kind of went through waves like that. And we realized, oh shit, we didn't talk for years, but we really are still really good friends, because I guess our brains, like those formative years in your teens and early 20s, we were still around each other, hanging out, reading comics, and doing the same dumb shit. So me going, like when Matt was finally like, hey, do you want to maybe come back in the band? I was like, first I looked at the lineup first, and the lineup looked pretty good. There was like, oh, it was Mike and Bud. I like those guys. That's cool. And then and I was like, yeah, let's give this another shot. We're actually getting along pretty well. Maybe this will work out. So, and it's been a lot of fucking fun. So
That's
shit,
cool, dude. I think that's super cool, because it's like we're all getting older. You realize like all the bullshit that happened in the past, it doesn't fucking mean shit, because we're here right now in this moment. Right now, we're having a fucking great time. Everybody's having a renaissance. Everybody's fucking making music together again. It's just like
And I think you get the perspective where you can be like, hey, you did X and Y wrong, and I also did S, T, U, and V wrong. And you can be like, now, 20 years later or whatever, like we've each done our own things, and it's not so life or death. It's not like, oh, I've been working on Exhumed since I was 15, and you screwed up this split 7-inch, so like fuck you, because
yeah.
it's like,
hey, what
now,
split 7-inch was that, Matt?
Oh, here we go. An actual fight.
Ross had mentioned
dissect
ego
this.
earlier. Ross had
we gotta
mentioned ego
adjudicate this
earlier.
right now. What split 7-inch did I fuck up?
well, there's two. There's Indignities to the Dead, and then Totally Fucking Dead.
I didn't fuck those up. You fucked those up.
No.
See,
And
we're very
back.
mature about it now.
We're right back in 98. But
Dude, wait. Talk about that hot chick again, real quick. Just talk
Aaron
about
Gray, yes.
You guys need a bass player?
Aaron
or-
Gray, Buck Rogers.
There you go.
Beep,
You guys are set again. You
And
guys are leveled out.
And it's cool, it's cool to be able to have the perspective, and for me at least, it was about like, it was about number one, self-knowledge, being like, oh, I'm like a primary contributor to like the bad vibes as well, instead of just blaming everybody else when I was a kid. And then B, it's also like, but yet I've grown as a person, and I'm not horrible or irredeemable, because like this guy that I've had a bunch of bad blood with 20 years ago, but we're like good friends again. Like, cool. Like that, and
Probably like
all the
years of
reasons that
being
we
in a-
were friends in the first place are still there.
Mhm.
And all the things that we were mad about each other, or mad at each other
Are
about.
back, or they're back in the past. They don't even fucking
They're
matter, dude.
They're mostly
like-
bullshit too. All the things a lot of the stuff we were mad about each other was just like pedantic little kid
Mhm.
shit. I mean, musicians tend to emotionally mature at a slower rate anyways.
Right.
because they're playing music. They're still playing with toys. Like, it's just a different kind of toy. I mean, you can play with this kind of toy, or you can also play with this kind of toy. They're still
Yeah.
toys.
Right.
So yeah, it took us a while. I mean, and there's probably, you know, some of the shit probably should have just been addressed, could have been addressed with a nice conversation and shit like that. And that's the kind of stuff, yeah, you get more mature. I mean, me and Matt got along great as kids, but I think we get along better now.
Yes.
Maturity and shedding ego. I mean, not shedding it completely. Obviously, we're never going to.
Yeah, I'm still pretty rad. I still have some ego.
Fuck yeah, you're rad, dude. You are rad.
It's probably
I'm
like
having a
you have,
great
you know,
time with you right now.
You have a few years of fucked up relationships with women. You're like, oh, what the fuck? I need to learn from this, and like maybe I can use this in my personal life. You know?
I mean, it's
Yeah,
just-
I mean, that's
it's just
probably
growth.
true. You're like, oh, what really weighs and matters. And you're like, yeah, this dumb relationship was stupid, but it's like, well, we have this friendship. Friendships are important.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a lot of busted relationships that I'm still friends with those people because I'm like,
Totally.
oh, well, this is just not the way it was working this way, but actually we're good friends and we can get over this dumb emotional hurdle and hang out and be cool.
This is that one chick you broke up over like a frying pan. You know, it's like
Yeah,
like, something
some
super
dumb
small.
bullshit
It's
like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
she
exactly.
did hit me in the head with that frying pan, to be fair. But yeah.
I'm good friends with a lady that threw a beer bottle at my head once.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we get past it
It's all forgiven. It's all
Yeah.
good.
Time heals all wounds.
It's called maturity. I guess we're growing up.
Right.
I know. Way too quick.
I
Ross,
mean, life's too short to hold on to this shit, you know?
Yeah,
Totally.
for sure.
I just wanted to say I checked out the Dr. Sewage website and I'm a big fan as of 3 days ago or whenever I checked
Oh,
it
cool.
out. You put a lot of cool stuff up there about your art, your music, and other projects. Can you give a little description of that website for us?
Yeah, it's my personal website, so it's got art and stuff on it, but I guess it kind of started back in the MySpace days where I was just where they introduced blogging on there. So I was just writing dumb shit and then, you know, talking about the bands and stuff and be like, oh, you should write. This is really cool. But a lot of it was just dumb shit about like cartoons I was watching and garbage. And so I kind of put it away for a while, but then I realized like all the stuff when I was writing about in the studio was cool. And then I partially got into technical stuff because of the gigantic financial crunch of 2007 and 8, where I couldn't afford to pay someone to fix my shit anymore. So I had to learn how to do it myself. And I realized I was acquiring a lot of knowledge from different people in different little spaces. And I was like, well, that would be a good way, instead of just writing about dumb cartoons or whatever, maybe I could actually spread some help and knowledge and positivity on the internet. And I know I play the character of a cynic a lot of times, but I actually do believe in the goodness of humanity and the free flow of information and helping people and, well, you know, like the socialistic aspects of that. So I started blogging pretty intensively about like everything I was fixing or modifying. And because there were other resources out there and they just seemed disparate to me. And I was like, well, there's a lot of people I work with, musicians I've in bands with that still don't understand how to match ohms on a pair of cabinets to an amplifier.
Yeah.
And
These are
like,
important skills.
I have no idea how to do that.
All right, just pick up your mic and shut up.
two on the road, half the load. See, I come up with mnemonics for this shit to help when you're not a good bass player, you have a lot of extra room in your brain for all this other shit that guitar players don't have because they're filled with solos and melodies. So I can actually, like, you know, Baz hits me up on the road. Like, I'm like, all right, well, I always bring my toolkit with me. He's like, oh, there's something wrong with this input. We fix the fucking input on the road, shit like that. And so, yeah, the website, you can go check out my art, and that's convenient. And it's also, yeah, I'm applying for some graphics design job. I got a portfolio on there, but I hope that I can help contribute. I guess I have. Some people have told me, which is nice to always hear, that help with the technical know-how, like what it's like in a studio for the first time, like what mics kind of work cool, like, or, you know, oh, my amp's broken. Actually, it's really simple. You could totally do this yourself and fix it. It's not a piece of garbage. Or maybe you can try out this pedal. And so just trying to kind of spread that stuff. I mean, we're in the underground. We don't have all the money to throw at everything all the time to fix every problem. And it can be, you know, very expensive to try to find your sound. So it's nice to have some kind of guide on the way. Not what I have to say is the end all be all, but this is another resource of information. If you ever want to check it out, I guess I'll plug it. Dr. Sewage, sewage.com with a K. I've got tags on
The
there.
K
for
is
different
in
amps. It's just
doctor,
stuff
not in
I've done.
com.
It's not.
I was like .com with a K.
Oh no, yeah, sorry, doctor with a K, sewage.com.
That would be fucking
Got it.
sick if it
I know,
was
if you could-
Tom
if
with
you
the
could pull
K,
that off.
dude.
I'm not. There's not a lot of
Doing
internet
that.
savvy stuff up on there. I don't know how to do that, but yeah, you can go. There's amps you can look up on there how I fix them and photo guides, and there hasn't been a lot to work on in the last year, so there hasn't been a lot of updating, but it's a resource if you're a young musician and you want to try to figure your way in the world. It's a lot of it is don't do what I did.
It's not even necessarily about being young. It's just about sort of areas of knowledge that may not be obvious. And I think like Ross is kind of underselling himself, but I think that there's so many attributes you can bring to the table besides being like, I can play my instrument. It's like, great, you can play your instrument. And Ross is like, well, I can play my instrument and I'm a graphic designer and I can like fix pedals and I can fix amps. And he's out there like sharing that sort of knowledge, which is, you know, really fucking useful, because if you had four me's who are like, well, I can play riffs, like, great. My amp broke. Your riff isn't gonna fix my fucking amp, bro. Like, your riff is not gonna make the layout for this cassette version of this demo that I only have this like Kinko's.
Only because they're not sick enough yet, dude. I mean,
I guess they're gonna get sicker riffs that'll fix amps, but you know, I mean, there's so many sort of skills that are important in being in a band that have really, you know, they're adjacent to musicality. You know,
Absolutely.
understanding the technical aspects of recording, of fixing gear, and everything else. I mean, there's like layers and layers and layers of useful skills, and so Ross has a lot of those things that I have no idea about. So
Ross, you had mentioned that you're still at work right now. What do you do, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm in the office. I'm hoping they don't shut the building on me. I'm a screen printer, but I do. Mike does T-shirts. I do flat stock, which is posters and such. I don't know if this will come off the wall. No, not that one.
Ross has printed all of our like. In fact, I'll grab one of our posters.
Go for it, dude.
pass
Yeah, I
it
want to
again.
check it out.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, super talented guy, man. Does a
Here
lot
we
of our
go.
color separations for t-shirts.
Oh,
yeah,
dude,
yeah.
that's sick, bro.
So yeah,
Super sick.
posters like this.
What is
shit
that
like
for?
that.
What was that one for right there?
I don't know, some band I never heard of.
Whoa, whoa.
I think they're probably a hippie.
Coming
We do
in
a lot
hot.
of hippie jam band shit because we're in the Bay Area.
yeah.
But I mean, we've done today. I printed a Melvin's poster for one of their online shows.
Oh damn.
And some other art print. Work is obviously slacked because we were largely a gig poster company, but now we're there's no gigs except for a few internet ones. So including like the Exhumed one I did the poster that
That's
Matt
right.
Oh.
Including Glorified at the Grind Guignol, which you can download or stream for just $10 via exhumed.bigcartel.com, or you can get the bundle pack featuring this hand screen printed poster by our own Ross Sewage. You can see it right here. Beautiful artwork drawn by yours truly, all DIY in-house.
Dude.
Plug over.
See,
dope. I'm
Matt
definitely
showing
buying that
off his
shit.
other skills. He's not just a guitar player. He's also a snake oil salesman.
I'm the Stan Lee of death metal. Like, you know, let me tell you about this. It's great. It's the most wonderful, fantastic thing you've ever seen. You're gonna love it.
I'm just imagining the Exhumed universe, like what that would be like. The Stanley universe, the Exhumed universe.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh.
Stan Lee, you know,
Or I
he
guess it
was-
would be the Matt Harvey universe. gruesome
probably, but
stuffed in
Stan-
there.
You know,
We
Stan
had one. We had a universe.
he's
And then what
when
did
we
it
were kids,
implode? Did it
When
implode?
we were kids, we were drawing comics together.
Yes.
And there was a
No
whole
shit.
universe with
Fuck
Hammerman and Major
Steel
Steel
and
and
all
that.
Stickman and Captain
Come
Spaceship and
Bring him
Captain
back.
Spaceship. Oh, that was Tim. That was Tim.
yeah, he was hanging out.
Is
I
any
forgot- I
do
forgot
you
about
guys preserve this, correct?
that.
I have it all.
Okay, good. I was gonna say Ross has some. I know Cole has some. I don't have that much anymore, but
Why don't you guys shed the rest of that ego we've been talking about and just fucking print that bitch up and sell it just like Matt was, dude?
I've been telling Matt for years to draw more and do more art and to do some comic shit. And I would gladly do it with him. I've done one comic that you
the
can get
Cole
at my-
comic is fantastic.
I've done and kickstarted and published my own comic based on the band Ghoul. And you can
Nice.
pick it up at drsewage.com.
There you go. See?
With a K, not on the
1990
com, but on the
What's-
doctor.
Yes.
What's shipping and handling? What's shipping and handling? It's 19.99 plus what?
The whole package is $10.
Ah,
It's a
$5
great
comic,
comic.
$5 shipping and handling.
Dude, I'm getting one.
Foil embossed logo on the cover.
Shut the fuck up, dude. I'm definitely
I'm
ordering.
gonna buy it right now.
28 pages inside, a full story.
Those
Art
are the types
by-
of things
I'm
that,
sorry.
that those are the
I-
types
I-
of things
I
that my
filed.
dick hard in at 36, dude. Is like handmade artistry, no matter how it is. If it's fucking playing cards, dude, I fucking love playing cards. If you look into playing cards, there's some dope fucking artists out there that are really fucking going sick on playing cards right now.
Hmm.
All right.
That's good. I've got some Turo sets, which I think is utter bullshit, but the art can be beautiful.
That's all I really care about those decks is
Yeah.
the art.
Stuff
I
like
lit-
that. I mean, and that's something we've talked about with Exhumed is, I mean, Ghoul was able to do a comic book. We've tried to think about like other things for Exhumed. I mean, there's just, as long as it's, well, it's got to sell, but it's also got to
Yeah.
be fun. It's got to be
That's
fun
true.
to do.
That's a true Stan Lee method right there. Is it selling? All right, then it's great.
And if it's mine, I got to be in it. So
Well, you just got to put your name first. That's the most important.
doesn't
skill
he do
is-
like a cameo and everything?
Well, I mean, he did before he died, but yes, I mean,
Well, yeah, obviously.
the thing about Stan Lee is that everything that they did there, he did with other people. He just was really good at putting his name first and putting his name bigger. And Stan Lee's like one of my heroes, so it's not. I don't mean to be disrespectful towards him, but without the artists, he's just the guy that sort of came in. He would talk to the artist, be like, "We're gonna do this," and then the artist would just hand him the comic book, and he would just fill in the word balloons. Like, okay, great. And so Spider-Man says this, and Mary Jane says this, and Aunt May says this, and Dr. Octopus says this, and good. And he had his own style, but he was also very good at just putting his name first. And that's one of the first rules of success in business is putting your name first.
Hell yeah.
I mean,
What's the goriest comic book you guys came across?
there's like Faust was pretty gory.
Faust is probably one of the gnarliest, I think, in terms of well illustrated gore. I think that's a good one.
Dead World would be the second
Yeah,
one.
Necro. Yeah, those are good. But I mean, my favorite ones are the old like shock suspense stories, the EC stuff. That stuff's just a fun to read. It's not super gross, but it's like the stories are compelling, and there's always the good twist of fate. I mean, that's
Right.
whenever I write lyrics and stuff like that, I try to approach it more from that direction, like telling a story as opposed to like, this one brutal thing happened. It's like, it's kind of boring to me. That's like, I was really glad to rejoin it with Exhumed when we did like a whole concept record, and Matt did an excellent job storytelling on that one. And that was a lot of fun to like deal with, it was like a whole the whole thing from beginning to end. And that's a little rough to do a whole record like that every time, but it's nice to be able to tell stories and do narratives. And I think both Matt and I came up reading comics and books and literature and stuff like that too. But comics are more fun to talk about.
So I'll go a little side note right here. You guys are into the Marvel shit. So my buddy, one of my best friends, he has all the like Marvel Masterpiece, all the old Marvel cards. Remember back in the day, like in the early 90s and stuff, those Marvel cards. He sold it to me, everyone in perfect condition for $30.
I don't think those cards are worth anything.
They're not worth anything. Like why? I mean, I remember like as a kid, they were worth everything. Like that was like the coolest set you could, you were going to school and trading cards all the time. But why are they worth a dog diaries?
Because the 90s was an entire speculation market.
Okay.
And people were buying new stuff and giving it value that it didn't actually have.
But Pokemon's got like there's cards that are like $2 million or $1.5 million for one card.
That's because them and like Magic the Gathering too were smart, and the way their cards work is there's games and they keep the value up because there's a value to the card beyond just like, look at this Eric Liefeld version of Spider-Man. There's no real value to that unless there's people collecting it. With Pokemon's a game that's continued, and like there was the one tour I went on in 2016 with Carcass, and we got out of our first show, and everyone was walking around downtown staring at their fucking phones. I couldn't figure it out. The Pokemon Go game had just been released.
Yep. Yeah.
So I mean, that's something that's kept very active in that it's a collectible thing.
Yeah.
You got to have them all. I mean, if you want something that's new, that would be more akin to that going on right now is like the Marvel Legends action figures are really big right now. And because they're released in limited quantities, certain characters become super valuable and they're like these random ones. So that kind of collector's market still exists. But yeah, those cards are dog shit and the art on a lot of them suck.
It's 30 years though. You think maybe in like 60 years it'll be worth like 20 cents?
No.
Because the thing is
I got duped.
Like, to sort of elaborate on what Ross was saying, I worked at a comic store in the early 90s when those were big sellers. And the thing is that comic books that have become valuable, they've become valuable not because they were printed in limited quantities. I mean, like, you know, Action Comics #1 or Captain America #1 from the 40s were printed in like 500,000 quantities, like quantities that would be unthinkable to print a comic book in, even in the 90s, let alone today, when like 70,000 is a massive print run. But they were collectible because nobody held on to them. And there was a segment of the comic book market that was driven by value investing. And there was still enough comics that became very valuable in the 90s that hadn't been valuable previously, like first appearance of Punisher, first appearance of Wolverine, so on and so forth. And what Marvel and DC, to a lesser extent, but Marvel was exceedingly guilty of, was trying to manufacture that sort of demand through continuous variant covers, holographic covers, trading cards, and so on and so forth, which was just gimmickry, because ultimately a character standing the test of time and becoming a part of pop culture, coupled with the inherent valuelessness of that character's first appearance. That's what creates value. Is all the moms from 1965, when their kids went to high school, threw away Amazing Fantasy 15 or Fantastic Four #1 because their kids are like, you're in college. You don't need this shit. This is garbage. It's a newsprint. You throw in the fire. Nobody cares about Dr. Doom or whatever. It's fucking crap. And of course, 40, 50, 60 years later, these characters are still kicking around. So that has become valuable. But in the 90s, they tried to artificially create that. And there was a segment of the market that actively bought into it. People that were buying like Death of Superman, Spider-Man #1, X-Men #1, blah, 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 trading cards and so forth. But they weren't really offering substantive long-term value. They were offering the illusion of collectibility. And that's really...
It helped kill the industry. It really destroyed.
I stopped reading comics because of it.
And a lot of that. And I mean, luckily, there's nothing in music like that. But anyway, their vinyls coming out on like 3 variant colors, and that is a totally sustainable model.
If they would have coupled the comic with a sick riff, I mean, there's the value.
Spider-Man #1, and you get a sick riff, like, oh, fair enough. I mean, but that's the thing when, you know, it's just marketing in general. That's how marketing works. You find something that people are excited about, you saturate the market with variations of that, and people will buy something thinking that they're getting something collectible when really it doesn't.
Like in first grade, those were just like the most important things in my life were those cards. So
but you were
like,
6, like
dude. I mean, I had the market, you know, on lock. I understood what was going on. Like
you were grading cards, you know.
I had pogs.
Most of them were 9.
Sometimes the invisible hand of the market looks more like a fist. That's just
and
that's punching you in the fucking head.
Because even like baseball cards, like I don't think baseball cards are really worth anything anymore.
Well, there's this new my friend Dan Kenny, obviously. He collects these new kind of football cards.
He's just your friend, dude.
Yeah, he's just my friend. But he stands in I'm just kidding. But
Joel owns Dan.
Yeah. No, he stands in line at Target every Thursday for these cards, and he's like trying to get me on it. And like people, he's like people that have the inside scoop, like get the cards first, and he's like posting about it all mad.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, he's trying to get. It's like an investment. It's like he's trying to get me to invest. It's like a
people
Bitcoin
do the same thing with
card.
the figures that Ross was talking about too. Like there's a huge issue of fans not being able to get the figures that they want because it's all being purchased by resellers. I mean that's. It's a short term. It's like a strip mining strategy where you can probably make a lot of money in the short term, but 30 years later, people will forget, like, oh my God, I really needed this thing 30 years ago. And
Yeah.
you turn around, you're like, I did not actually need that. What I
GI
needed
Joe,
is,
there's like they're releasing new GI Joes finally, and I have zero interest because they're impossible to find,
right,
except for at 4 times the cost on eBay.
Yeah.
because a bunch of 45-year-olds are buying them and then selling them to other 45-year-olds.
Yeah.
And it's just,
And the toy company doesn't, I mean, the company doesn't care. They'll
'Cause
do
they're
it
making the
until
money.
like the next thing comes along, and then
Right.
they'll just make money on something else. There's
right.
not a lot of love there. It's a,
You think
it's
those
corporations
Pokemon-
making money.
Those Pokemons are going to lose like the insane value that they have now, like millions of dollars for one card. Do you think they'll lose value?
Yeah, dude. Throw them in the
yes.
fire, dude.
I don't, not all of
Right.
them. I mean, because again, it's all about like how many people like it. And Pokemon is what they're not owned by Nintendo. I don't remember who they're owned by, but
Is it
they've done a
Bandai?
good job of keeping that value up. And same with like Wizards of the Coast with Magic the Gathering. They've got this whole corporate thing in play where they every couple seasons they change the rules and certain cards are out and in, and then older people are playing this old set and they really want these cards. So the corporations have become better at making the collectability last a bit longer since that comic glut of the 90s. So I think some of those will hold value. I mean, Pokemon's just like a huge name. Now you want to talk about something losing value. Those Marvel cards, you think those lost value? You think those lost value? I had Marvel stock.
Whoa.
I had
didn't go
Marvel stock.
bankrupt.
My parents bought me when I was 16. And I used to get these prospectuses from the company with like pictures of the Hulk, like showing you the financial futures of Marvel. And then they went
I
bankrupt.
remember these.
It's like now you owe them
What?
money.
They
When
got
was that,
bankrupt
bro?
multiple times.
What year was
they went
that?
bankrupt in the 80s, and they also went bankrupt in the 90s.
It was in the late 90s when they had to sell off all their characters to other
So
movie
what do you guys?
companies.
What do you
when
guys
all
think
that went
about?
down.
What do you guys think about Disney owning that shit now?
Oh yeah, think about what my stock would be worth if I bought
Yeah,
it
that's
right
what I was gonna say.
after
dude.
that bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about
your
Disney
cards.
is that I think the thing with Disney, like the bonus, the good side for me as like a lifelong fan, like when I was 5 years old, my entire world was Spider-Man, like just waiting to see Spider-Man cartoons. That's really all I cared about. The good thing is Disney is so financially impervious that the characters will be around forever, and that the recent round of interest in the characters has expanded so far beyond just Spider-Man and Wolverine.
I got a
So-
9-year-old, dude, so I know, dude.
Dude,
They expanded that shit like a
Like,
motherfucker.
to me, like the thing that I miss the most about not having kids is like going to Target with my wife to like buy a blanket or candles, and I'm like, holy shit, look at that sick Iron Man costume. Like if I had a son, I could like buy that for him, and I could be like, okay, so there was this time that the Mandarin teleported Iron Man to China to fight Ultimo, who came out of a volcano, and somebody would be interested in what I was saying instead of my wife being like, would you shut the fuck up, please? Like, you're a grown man in Target. You're embarrassing me.
That's why me and Matt go see the Avengers movies together.
on tour. That's what we do. But so I think with Disney that there's a certain imperviousness, but there's also going to be. I'm skeptical about how willing the corporation is going to be taking chances with some of the properties, because some of them are quite bizarre, and we're already seeing that the results of like a Doctor Strange movie are far less bizarre than a Doctor Strange comic.
Yeah.
And of course, there's just the fear of mass consolidation. It's like, do you want every band to be on Nuclear Blast? Like, just like, do we want Disney to
I
own
know, right?
Fox and Marvel and Star Wars and blah, blah, blah? Like, is that really a good thing
I
for the
know.
creative state?
Feels kind of weird.
these properties.
It's
I
a
don't know.
terrible thing. It's an awful thing, but I'm enjoying what they're putting out now. There's that whole thing about something happens now, so your childhood is ruined. Fuck that. That's not how time works.
That is
Right.
not at all how
Time
works.
goes forward. So
Mhm.
if they bungle it all, and
They
I'll
will.
just walk away being like, cool, I got to see all those fucking superheroes on screen at one point, and that was phenomenal and amazing.
Right.
And now it's just like Star Wars. It's like I went through that shit where I'm like, oh, I don't like this stuff, so I don't even know if I like old Star Wars. I went and watched old Star Wars. I'm like, this movie is amazing, and I still love it, and it still gets me excited. And if I don't like the new stuff, that's fine. It's for a different generation. That's cool.
with the
But I
new
don't
stuff,
like
the
the media
Spider
consolidation.
in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I actually really enjoyed watching that.
That was a
love
great
that
movie.
That was a
I-
good one.
I like that twist where there's
Oh,
Spider-Mans
oh.
from several different
Yeah,
dimensions and
they do
shit.
some
So-
cool shit with it, and Disney and Fox will do some cool shit until they don't.
Just
And
real
then
quick,
I'll still
gonna
hate
turn the
them like
camera
most
around here.
corporations.
Let's see it, Matt.
And,
Let's
like,
see it.
Hold on.
It's bad, but I mean that's
Look at that.
oh yeah, Matt's superhero
Is
collection.
that clear? I
Oh,
don't know if
yeah.
that's clear enough.
We can see a bunch of yeah, we
But
can.
yeah, those are mostly toys from when I was. So half of them are from when I was a kid, and then half of them I purchased later. But yeah,
Dude, I'm
So-
totally going through the same shit, dude. I just told my wife, like, fuck, dude, I'm getting into everything that I was into as a kid again. I'm going through it again. I'm getting back into fucking playing cards and fucking dice and all this kind of crazy shit. And it's just like we go through cycles as humans, you know. You just
Well, I think there's cycles. There's also a worldwide pandemic. What the fuck else are you supposed to do? I mean, it's
to me, honestly, like I could go back and talk to myself as a 13-year-old, and 13-year-old me would be like really annoying. However, I would be like, "You're into metal, like I'm into metal. You're into comics, I'm into comics. Sick. You like tabletop role playing games? I like tabletop role playing games. Like, dude,
Fuck yeah, dude.
yeah. I mean, like for me, I've never. Maybe I've experienced a remarkable lack of personal growth, but my interests have stayed relatively consistent since about 1987. And I'm very fortunate to live in a time where I can go to the movie theater and like fucking see like Captain Marvel punch Thanos, which is like, if somebody would have told me that when I was like 13, like there's going to be a whole movie about Carol Danvers, and there's going to be another one where she punches Thanos in the face, I would be like, oh my, the future's awesome. And I'd be like, and if I could tell myself when I was 15, I could be like, you could listen to any Morbid Angel demo you want by typing. I would have been like, wait, by typing? Like typing on what? Like, oh my God, the future is the best.
Do I
So
typewrite it? Do I send it in the mail?
I would have had no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, so I'm you know, the future's not so bad. It's
Yeah,
got some serious
totally, dude.
downsides, but you know.
I'm in the same boat, dude. Like there is a lot of people who are just like all that, like we just mentioned it earlier, like you're ruining my childhood by redoing
No, that's
all
a
this
bit of
shit.
bullshit.
I hate that statement, dude, because it's like I actually enjoy a lot of these reworkings and you
If you
as-
don't, who cares? Aren't you too old to like get mad about Spider-Man on the internet? Like you're in your 30s. If you're on the internet like bitching about Spider-Man, like go get laid and fucking get a beer. Like,
well,
grow
I
up.
mean, okay, be fair. You can bitch about it, and it's fun to bitch about it, and it can be fun to talk with your friends about the
With
shit
your
you don't like. So I'm not
friends,
gonna.
yes.
But if you feel that a fucking billion-dollar multinational corporation owes you anything, they don't owe you shit.
No.
They're looking at dollar signs all the time. If you want to go look at real art, you go start supporting smaller, like independent comic books. You start
Exactly.
like
and-
there's like lots of like little like novelty toy makers and stuff that make stuff at a very
Dude,
small scale.
just because you said that, I literally got this deck today. It's a Ralph Steadman.
Oh,
yeah.
sick.
Awesome.
Art, all of his artwork on that fucking deck. It's only like fucking. I mean, actually, it's expensive, $20 a deck. But dude, every card has a different Ralph Steadman fucking piece on it. It's an
called
all
art.
collaborative deal. Like that type of shit gets my dick hard. I probably
mean,
already said
that-
that too many times this podcast.
And
That's
there is
right.
as
Fair
much as
part.
there's the media consolidation right now, there's also more avenues to go forward for smaller independent work creators on like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, which are like they kind of have their own issues, but it's amazing that shit can exist. And like I just got a card game called Knife Tank, and it's about tanks that have knives on them. Completely like
Sounds really good.
yeah, and then, like you throw the cards at each other. There's no guns. It's all tanks with knives. Like, and that shit got made. And it's so much easier for that stuff to get made and find its little niche market. And I forget who wrote the thing, but the theory of like 1,000 fans, that you can keep something sustainable as long as you just have 1,000 fans.
If only that
World.
was somehow applicable to being in a band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or a podcast.
I mean, like
Yeah.
it really is like the punk rock ethos, because of the internet and because of the atomization of everything. It's applied to everything, and you know, you can be into underground music or underground games or underground comics or all of the above or whatever. And yeah, for people to get mad about something that Disney is doing, I mean, that's pointless. Like you're mad about something, you think you've owned something that was never yours. Whereas if you're part of a independent community supporting an independent property, whether it's a band or whether it's a card thing or whatever, I mean, that's where the real involvement is. The stuff that you were involved with was as a kid was always owned by a big corporation. It was just the illusion because you were 6. So just
it strikes me as it's a very narrow view, like with somebody who's like, oh, I can't believe they had this one character do this thing in the last Star Wars or whatever, and I'm so fucking upset. It's like, go read another book.
Right.
Go
Not
check
only
out a
that,
different movie.
You got to look at it like this. The corporation bought a universe. We just said the universe, right? So they bought a universe just to have a cushion of stories. They don't have to start from scratch anymore. They have a whole universe to make endless amounts of movies based on the comic books that have already been written.
Like the media consolidation is bad overall. Like I'm enjoying what the fruits of it right now, but it's like I'm so fucking sick of those fucking characters and copyright extensions that keep going and going. And
nothing ever becomes public domain anymore.
Yeah, and nothing ever becomes public domain. And it's like, you know, there's a little bit of oversaturation. Like, love Star Wars all you want, but it's like on every magazine cover or whatever for like whenever a movie's coming out, and because they own the magazine, and then they get they can push, especially the bad part with the media consolidation of something like Disney is how they can crush independent movie theaters that actually were an avenue and a venue for smaller art house movies to go up. Well, we're not going to give you Star Wars unless you run all these other Disney movies. Well, then we won't have room for this, like the next Clerks or something like that. And so that gets crushed. So it really, as much as it's fun to enjoy Marvel and Disney and shit, like, and I do, it's important to keep looking out for independent creators and really take, if you're into underground metal, take that ethos beyond just like, hey, I got this vinyl from 20 Bucks Spin or Tank Crimes. It's like, look at that as your broad view of culture. You really should be looking for the underground in everything.
And it's like just in life, even
bringing it from their heart and not just recycling a feeling that you had as a kid to try to keep you buying shit.
Well, it goes
like,
back
it's
to
fun.
almost
You
like
can do that. You can buy that stuff, but then don't forget to go look for something new. The next cool thing that will mean something to you now, as opposed to something that just meant something to you as a kid.
Right.
Yeah, it goes back to like what Matt was saying earlier about like the music and you know, there's not really much more you can do in that genre. It's like, I forgot what I was gonna say. I'm drunk.
I mean,
I'm sure it was very good. Whatever I said.
When it comes to music, you can get real stuck in shit. And it's like, you know, I know people from high school that like can only listen to Metallica and they haven't heard anything since.
And they're like, oh, Metallica sucks, and I'm mad about it. It's like, well, there's like 40 other bands that probably were playing music you would have liked, but you're only buying fucking Metallica shit.
I mean, you can get another gigantic corporation that's like got their problems is Spotify, but I love the Spotify Discover. I'm like, play me shit I've never heard before.
Totally.
And like, yeah, it's based on an algorithm on my taste, so a lot of it appeals to me, but I'm like, this is rad. I've never heard this band or this band, and I should have heard this band and this band. And the avenues to find those things is so much bigger and broader now than it ever has been in human history.
Right.
The ability to be able to find something is so much easier now. Don't get hung up on fucking Raylo. Who gives a shit about Raylo?
Well, also, don't get hung up on your favorite band from high school not releasing music that you like anymore. Fucking listen to any other gajillion fucking bands, you know? I mean, or start your own band. That's what I did in high school when I was like, my favorite bands aren't releasing albums. I started my own band. Yeah. I was like, cool, this is what I wish they were doing. I'm going to do that. And, you know, don't just sit around waiting for somebody else to do it. And it's a really unique time because of the internet. Obviously, you know, I don't want to be one of these old people like, when I was a kid, I had to ride my bike to the store and maybe they had my favorite tape and maybe they didn't. And like, shut the fuck up. Like, and that just sounds pathetic. It's like now we're in an era of unprecedented choice. So just stop being fucking boring and don't be a basic bitch listening to the same fucking 10 bands, unless they're my bands, in which case always listen to those and buy all the merch.
I was
But
gonna say, yeah.
in life,
So what we're saying is, if you don't like the next Exhumed, it's your fault.
It's like
We
they're
don't know
coming
you
for
shit.
but I mean, but the other thing is, like, if you don't like the next Exhumed, they're like, go listen to a million other bands, you know, don't
Yeah,
just, you know, if you don't like whatever, you know, band on Nuclear Blast, I guarantee you there's 20 other bands that will scratch that same itch. They're
totally.
independent, and you can really, you know, not buying a Testament record. Eric Peterson's still going to make his mortgage payment, but
yeah,
buying some band's record from Bandcamp could make a fucking big difference, you know. And
totally.
nothing against Testament, I love Testament, but
If you
it's
don't like
just
the
an
next
example.
Exhumed, go check out Cartilage.
I'm actually more of a Dragon Lord fan.
Okay, well, I mean, no accounting for taste, man. Whatever gets you up in the morning.
I'm joking, dude.
I hope so, but yeah.
I worked at Guitar Center in
Dude, I'm totally fucking around.
I worked at Guitar Center in Sacramento, and that guy would come in all the time and like be the judge at all the guitar competitions and like the Tesla guys and stuff like that. And
Oh,
one
nice.
time, the Mick Mars one time walked in, and one of my butt rock, like he's in charge of the old guitars, so he's like the butt rock old guy. It's like all burnt out. He's
So
like,
I want to party with.
totally. He's got his 4th DUI. He's got like 9 breathalyzers on his car, like,
like it.
ankle bracelets, like all the shit.
He's got
all
to
the
blow
shit.
into 9 in a row.
He's got one that goes in the butt, one in the mouth. No, he walked in there, and Mick Mars came with a I don't know if this is a totally random whatever, but he came in with a bodyguard or something. He's all hunched over, and the butt rock guy used to party with him back in the day, and he's all, hey, blah blah blah, like by his real name. And they're all, you don't fucking call him that, blah blah. And they just like they all flipped out on the whole staff, and then walked out. And I was like, I need a new job. This is dumb. I'm just tired of this shit. I mean, Eric Peterson was nice to me. Though. Yeah, he was actually the craziest story was this kind of like hippie girl walks in. She's like, I want a guitar that speaks to me, and I'm like, oh my god. Well, she's like, I want a yellow guitar, and I was like, here's a yellow. It was like a $7,000 guitar. I'm like, check this '63 Strat out. And she's all, okay, I'll take it. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, because I'm on commission at the time. I'm like, fuck yeah, you'll take it. And then people like they walked up to me, like, you know who you're talking to, right? I'm like, no, it's like some idiot that was rich or something. And and it was like, that's the guitar player for Prince. And I was like, oh shit. Like yeah. So it's random things at the Sacramento Guitar Center.
What's the commission on a 70? What would you say? 700? No,
7,000. Actually, you know, I worked there right before Dave from Cali Decapitation worked there for a long time. But yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that was it's a random, the Sacramento Guitar Center. You see so many like David Allan Coe would walk in and be like buy.
I want a guitar that's racist. What do you got? I mean, I love David Allan Coe, but I'm just
yeah. He's all, I got this black guitar. He's like, no, I don't want that one.
The crazy thing is the drummer for David Allan Coe lives like 30 miles from where I live.
Really?
Wow,
we're friends on Facebook.
Facebook.
David Allan Coe had a lot of great songs, man. Line me up some rails, boys. Don't put me in jail, boys. If I make a little noise, just leave me alone. It's classics. Anyway, but yeah. I'm sure Sacramento is very interesting though, because like so many people from the Bay sort of filter out there, as they're like, well, now I'm older.
Cost of living too. Like
there is somewhat of bailing.
Yeah.
It's somewhat of a mass exodus happening actually right now.
You know what? In Sacramento, that train museum is fucking legit.
Yeah.
They got one of the golden spikes there. They have entire locomotives and I can't oversell the Sacramento Train Museum enough. If you ever get a chance to check it out,
you're tickling my taint, dude. You're tickling my train taint.
My trains. Lay down your tracks right into my trains.
And that's all I know about Sacramento.
Choo choo.
Anyways, could someone else take the floor?
I mean, I have honestly, guys, I have no idea when this turned into a non-Exhumed podcast, but I've been having a great time. If you guys want to keep going with this, I'm fucking down with this. If we want to steer it back to Exhumed, that's fine too. We're wherever, or you guys can tell me to shut the fuck up and we end this. Tell me anything. I'm in.
I sort of at this point I'm thinking maybe, you know, let's sort of corral it back and then wrap it up because that's
Happy.
another
Yeah,
shit
yeah,
I got to do
let's-
been before I leave tonight. But
Yeah, no, that's
I
all
have been
good, dude.
enjoying the whole thing wholeheartedly.
Who
Especially
wants to listen to just Exhumed shit for 2.5 hours? I think we're good. Let's fuck it up. But yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm a little afraid of getting locked in my building, which has happened
All right,
before, and I set off
okay.
the alarm.
Yeah.
All right, let's corral
So-
in. I like the corral idea.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we bring it home with future plans aside from when you can actually do these plans, but you guys got plans. You got just take us from where you're at right now, what you feel like you need to do as a project after you can actually do everything you want to do.
I guess I'll go.
Yeah, you want to talk about the recording?
Yeah, we're getting to record.
You guys have plans right now,
Yes,
even though
we
they've
do.
been like
We always
put
have plans.
on hold. Everything's been stagnant for a while, but there was some plans. Let's hear about them.
We're ready to record album number 8. That's a big number. So Mike will be flying out next month from Ohio back to the Central Coast. We're going to start rehearsing. We're in the process of demoing songs right now. And because our first show was played 30 years ago in 1991, not only does that mean that I'm very old, but sort of in honor of that, we're getting some previous members involved with the writing process on this album. Mike Beams, who played with us on the first 3 albums, has written a song. Leon Del Muerte, that played with us multiple times here and there, he's written a song. Bud Burke, our old guitar player and old bass player, he's supposed to be
Leon pointed out it's the first song he's ever written for Exhumed.
right.
Despite,
well, he wrote one in '97, but then we didn't end up using it because
and then he joined the band again and still never finished a song. But now
I tried to get him to write one when he rejoined, but he was just lazy.
Leon's on. He's the one on the Keith Merrow podcast or the videos,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
He's fucking awesome. Yeah, hell yeah.
And then our old bass player Matt Widener, who went on to play in Cretin and the County Medical Examiners, he's submitted a song as well. Ross has written a song. Sebastian, our other guitar player, is working on stuff. So, we've sort of taken advantage of the fact that everything has to be done remotely to kind of bring in more of like an extended family thing. That involves people from throughout the band's history, and also just because it's our 8th album, and the struggle at that point becomes to like find a way to do something different without just being like, hey, look, we made a techno folk hard polka album. Like, well, that's really get people's interest. We don't want to change what the band's about, but we do want to do something that's hopefully somewhat fresh and interesting each time, not just for the audience, but also for ourselves, because I think everyone in the band has certainly heard enough of my riffs. Although there will be many of those on the album as well, but it's just, this is kind of something that we can do that is kind of fun and celebrates the band's history in order to do something new and different.
That sounds awesome. It's a great idea. Yeah.
Cool. I'm excited about it, and it's fun, learning other people's songs and stuff. And obviously everybody that wrote a song used to be in the band, but they know that they're writing for the band. So it's kind of interesting to see someone that hasn't played with us in a long time, like, what is their take on our style? Because they know it intimately, but at the same time, they've been apart from it. So it's kind of cool to get a fresh perspective,
Totally.
So, and of course we got tour plans, but those are fungible to say the least.
Right.
Just to see how the world pans out, see when they get vaccines to enough people. But
right.
Those plans are in the works at least, and there's dates set aside by everybody, and we'll just have to see what happens there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody's realistic. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, this is an opportunity for us, to get back to the working sense of being in a band and jamming, playing on our instruments again, as opposed to playing remotely and just, on our own, which is always odd when you're, in a working band and now you're,
kind of exciting though.
It is. It's fun.
Everybody kind of got like leveled out. Everybody got brought back to zero almost, and now you get to relive that.
It also makes you appreciate, being in a band with your bros, and just getting in a room and making noise again, which was taken from us. It's like beyond our control. So, we can create some music together, have some good times, write a killer record, record it. Get stocked up on some merch, drink some beers, have some barbecues, and just get back to a sense of normalcy.
Right.
Even if it's just a small window of time until we can get resumed back to doing what we love. But
it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
we've got some plans in the works, and everybody's very realistic. Everyone in the band, as well as our agent and the label and stuff, where we want to kind of have some stuff in pencil. So if the opportunity is really there, we're not going to get caught flat-footed. Like, oh shit, we can tour. Like, we need to book something now. But at the same time, we've all been through this for a year and a half of like, let's plan this. Well, that's not going to happen. Let's plan that. No, that's not going to happen. So, and the other thing is, we want to get back out there and we want to play, but we want it to be something that everybody feels good about, like from a safety standpoint. I mean, obviously we're a death metal band, but we don't want someone to put their fucking life and their health at risk.
Yeah, we're not Smash Mouth.
Right.
Somebody
gave me COVID. In the
Could you imagine
meantime,
dying for Smash Mouth? Like, of all the bands to die for, fucking Smash Mouth. Like,
I just
They had
smashed
two good
my
songs,
mouth,
but-
dude. I just smashed my mouth right now.
follow all this shit will be revealed. Plugging on what's the Facebook official Exhumed or Exhumed official.
I think it's Exhumed, facebook.com/Exhumed official. Yeah.
YouTube
Just type
is
zoomed in the search box, it'll pop right up.
yeah.
Google
YouTube
is always a
official
great
Exhumed.
foundation.
Hopefully, we'll have some more videos on there. Maybe some more playthroughs if Matt feels like doing them. Maybe some more of us talking. And Instagram is official Exhumed.
I know it's Exhumed_official, I think, isn't it? Hold on.
I don't know.
I got
Look it
I
up.
have an answer machine right here.
I can't wait for you guys to resume the exhumed.
Right.
Follow us and all that
Exhumed.
shit because we try to be funny.
It is
Don't always work.
Exhumed_official is our Instagram.
Nice.
And yeah. So we're on all the
All the socials.
All the things.
All the socials except for TikTok.
right, we're
Yeah.
too old for
We haven't
TikTok.
jumped into that realm yet either.
No one here.
Well, the problem is I'm the only one who could dance.
That is a
Dude.
problem.
All right. I'm going to hold you to it right now. We're going to have a Cali Death podcast. If we start a TikTok, you're going to be the first video, Ross. You're going to do a dance
Yeah.
for us
I'll point at
Intro.
words that
Yeah.
say my message while I dance.
to the Cali
is it-
Death intro
Is
That
that
should
what's
be a
on
lyric
TikTok?
video.
by Christopher
Yeah.
Beebe. What up?
Boom, Cali, boom, death, boom, podcast.
I'll produce that shit.
All right, let's do it.
I'll edit it once it's filmed. Yeah,
I'm
let's
Oh
do it.
yeah.
This,
do it.
Fantastic.
this is
I'll be-
serious.
Yeah.
I'll
I can do it.
beatbox over
The
it.
new, the new
Oh,
getting.
flossing.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah. Get it.
That's sick.
I'm ready for my spot in Fungo Mungo.
Boom.
Yeah.
And now I got to do my Fungo Mungo research.
And
after
that
this
was how
episode, dude.
Ross was fired the second. Boom.
He learned the floss and got fired second.
Ross the
Got
floss.
flossed.
Ross the Floss. There's Ross the
No.
Boss from Manowar and then Ross the Floss.
All right, dude, this was so fucking cool, dude. I had such a blast tonight, guys.
Oh, thank you
glad
for
you
having
guys-
us.
Gave us a nice chunk of your time for sure, dude. This
Our
was
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man. Thanks
And
for
Mikey,
supporting
thanks
Death Metal,
for-
brother.
Yeah, thanks for coming back on, Mikey. Yeah, we'd love to have
yeah.
you again too, dude.
Yeah, I
You're-
watch
you're
all the
all-
episodes, man. You guys are killing
the-
it. You're doing
for
a
the
good
Vile
thing for
episode.
underground death metal. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks,
dude.
Final episode.
Open invitation to all three dudes, always.
Awesome,
Cheers,
man.
man. Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bye bye.
Most definitely. Yeah, dude.
Real quick before we end, just shout out to Jeff Rothamer, fan of the page. We had a bass lesson over Zoom just before this podcast. My first lesson of
Nice,
You know,
dude. Shout out
spirit-
Jeff.
started by doing the pod, and he like connected, and he's a fucking
cool.
rad dude out in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I
supports us.
recognize that name. I seen him.
Nice.
He's definitely active.
Yep.
Thanks for
No
fucking-
flip flops for Jeff. He's
No
in
flip flops
Wisconsin.
for Jeff. Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
I'm
Jeff's
gonna-
okay in my book,
bastard.
man.
2 flip-flops down.
Hey, all pun intended. You've all just been exhumed.
Oh.
Get it?
Oh, shit.
Oh, whoa.
I got
And
dad
that's how
jokes.
Mike got fired.
I got
Getting
that
fired.
Yeah, totally.
Where's those New Balances, son?
I got it. Tidy
Get off
whitey.
Mike's lawn.
Yep, tidy whitey.
Every day.
Hamilton drumming in
Oh.
New Balances, dude. That would be
Hey, true
the
story,
greatest, dude. When they go for the double feet fucking view, you know,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
got the New Balances on.
all you see is Z's, sons, no ends.
Okay, boomer.
I know.
Ah, fuck yeah.
Hey, man, all right, I'm out of here, man. Later.
All right. So calideath.com. You'll see Joseph. I don't know if you got some shit going down, but it's over there. All the other socials, Cali Death Podcast. How do I say that, Joseph? What is it?
It doesn't. If you can watch this video, you can find us everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you're good to
All
go,
right,
dude.
so cool. Yeah, just tell everybody, dude. We love you guys. Thanks for fucking being with us every week. We keep it coming every week, and we will be here next week. So rock on, guys. Thanks for
Cheers.
fucking tuning in. Exhumes the fucking shit, and we're out.
Fuck yeah.
Cheers,
Cheers.
bud.
Full hails.
Thanks.